So, sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning once again. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Now, today's webinar is on working with difficult people. You must have come across, sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning once again. Catherine, good morning.
Morning, Dan.
So, as I've said, today's training is on working with difficult people. You must have come across that this in the course of your duties, in the course of your work. Also, in our day-to-day life, we must have worked with some very difficult people. Sometimes you wonder where these people came from. Now, we shall have a very interactive session with Madam Catherine Wamwangi. Catherine Wamwangi is a certified executive coach, and she actually teaches coaching at the College of Human Resource Management. Those who have undergone through the CHRP training must have come across her at one time or another. She has also worked variously in many international organizations, and it is my pleasure, Catherine, to have you on board as you conduct this training. So welcome, everybody, and let us now, let me hand over this to the trainer who will take us through until the conclusion of this training. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? I can see a nice team of participants, 13 of us. I'm looking forward to interacting with you. Please feel free to unmute your mic at any time just to make a contribution, to share an experience, and for us to be able to learn and make sure that we can take away some very valuable lessons. So as Dan has introduced me, thank you, Dan, for the introduction. I appreciate. My name is Catherine Amwangi. I'm a certified executive coach. And also I've been in HR for the last maybe 25 years now. I've worked for corporates. I've worked for the NGO sector. I've been privileged to work with the government on some projects. And I enjoy training very, very much. It's one of my passions. Just interacting with people, impacting skills and knowledge. And I also work very closely with the college where I lecture coaching and also strategy. So a very warm welcome. I know we come from diverse backgrounds and diverse industries, but it would be good to hear and for us to interact so that we take away really good lessons and things that we can implement for our own selves and also at the workplaces where we are, or whether it's at your workplace, whether it's in business, or whether it's in consultancy, or just generally making sure that you can enhance your life one way or another. This is the new norm, as we call it now, and I hope we are adjusting to it and we are enjoying it. It could be a bit difficult for some of us, and I say that with a lot of humility, because we know that there are many things that are going on at this time, and we are trying to make sure that we try and accommodate and try and help everybody. So let's be a bit more kind, gentle, and what a timely topic in terms of dealing with difficult people. We're already in difficult circumstances. Really, do we want people to be more difficult than the current circumstances of what we are? So that's the introduction. I would like us to set the pace in terms of when you looked at this topic and say, this is something that I would really like to participate with. I would like to attend. And I'm sure you have expectations, you have things that you would like to take away. I would request you and invite you right now to reflect back on why you would be sitting here for the next 2 hours for us to listen to this topic and also to hear from others. What are some of your expectations? Expectations? Please feel free to unmute your mic. I'll call out. If that's how I teach. I just call out. Someone, expectations, please. Anyone?
Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Jane. How you doing?
I'm doing Madam Chair. You know, you're my Madam Chair as well. Proud of you. My expectation today is really if the difficult person is the senior leader in your organization and you have to interact with them all the time, how to work with them, and they're very difficult.
It's true. Nobody speaks truth through power. Nobody tells the king he's naked, isn't it? I can totally relate with it. Sometimes we just say, well, how do I navigate these waters? You know, you're senior. I can't get there. It's almost impossible. I have to protect my position, my space, and sometimes it's difficult. I like that expectation. Thank you, Jane, and a warm welcome. Someone else? Expectations for today?
Hey, Catherine.
Hi, Caro. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for even this webinar. In an organization, it's very hard to avoid difficult people. One way or another, you'll just meet a difficult person. And I like the way Jane is saying a senior person would be even more difficult. But sometimes you can even be given someone to supervise. And maybe in another setting, they were your boss. And now they are your subordinate and you don't know how to handle them. Or they're just new in your organization and they are unruly.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
what do you do? So
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here to learn more about how to handle the situation. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's very practical lessons and we can relate with it. And even when I was thinking through this topic, I've encountered a lot of difficult people. You know, as you get to know people more, you know where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are. You also come to appreciate them more, you know, in terms of how can I navigate around them to make sure that I can have a real good interaction with them. And honestly, as HR practitioners, and I don't want to assume that we all are, because we all interact with people, is that when people come for the interviews, and they the best of the best of the best in the best behavior, we think that they can never harm a fly until they come in and they make the environment so toxic. You wonder, where did you fall from? Who are you? You know, and we have to start managing them because they are unmanageable, ungovernable, you know, and sometimes we don't even realize as individuals how difficult it is for us to be able to manage that kind of a person because it actually now puts the stress on us. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Caro, and that's a very good point. Someone else? Expectations?
Martin yes, good morning.
Hi, Martin, and then I will go to Hortensia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine.
Yes.
My environment is a bit tricky because I think over time, a few of the difficult people have been thrown to me. Possibly somebody saw some, maybe some expertise from my side. So I have quite a few difficult people in my environment. And my boss actually nominated me specifically to this course because it's becoming an issue because I have all of them right now. Yeah.
Okay. So are they all in your team or every difficult person from every department or every division is thrown to you?
Quite a few difficult people are eventually finding their home in my place. I don't know. I'm finding it. I need this skill very, very seriously.
Okay. So I like that where Martin, you're saying that the people, the difficult people are being pushed to you. Perhaps the organization has seen a skill in you and they want you to handle it. And I'm happy that you're here. You can hone that skill better. You can also give us experiences and share what you've been able to do when those difficult people come and how do they manifest themselves? I'm sure they are all not the same, you know, they are different degree of difficulty. So
Sure.
yeah, well done. And thank you
Thank
for, I think it's a good thing, you know, by the time you come out to become a stronger person and you're able to look back and say, well, it was worth taking up that assignment. Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Potentia.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Morning, how you doing?
Fine, fine. So my expectation for today's lesson is how to detect difficult people. You know, first we need to know how to detect them and how to handle, and then know where there is a problem. You know, sometimes you may find maybe it's the management who is doing bad things.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
we need to know where there is problem.
Yeah, how to take them a mile away, you know, from there, how they come in and they finally join in, and you know, for sure, I was right in how I figured them out, I teased them out and how it is. Okay, great. Anybody else? The last one?
Yes. Good
Hi,
morning.
Lillian. Hi.
Good
Okay,
morning, everyone.
Good morning, Lillian, then Christine.
Yes, I think for me, I want to know if the difficult person is your immediate supervisor. It's easy to manage others around you, especially if you're in HR. You can manage the other departments. You know, the kind of fear you as HR. But if you're feeling that the immediate person who you report to, in my own understanding, is the difficult one, and you know, it gets to you on an emotional level. Whatever you do is not right. If you don't do, it's also not right. So you're just, I don't know.
Yeah, you are left there feeling you're hanging, you don't know what to do. And especially, well, I can relate with you. We've all been there where your supervisor seems to be difficult, but how do you navigate those waters around? So we can share experiences on how best to go through that. And especially one of the things that I find difficult in looking at the real circumstances is that when people are always looking for faults, you've done your best, but even if you have not put a comma, then it becomes such a big thing. You know, I nearly say, so you put the comma. I mean, it's not something so difficult. So put the comma, we go on, you know, but they're always looking at finding fault instead of saying, well, this you could have done better and well done for what you've done, but you would have done better. But they're always looking for fault. So how do you work with those people? Was it, who was the next one? We can get into the crux of it.
Hi, Catherine.
Yeah, hi, Christine.
And this is Christine.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Christine. Yeah, this is Christine. My expectation would be to learn how to enhance teamwork with difficult people.
Enhance teamwork with difficult people. Okay, great. Yeah, a good expectation because we all work in teams. I like when people come and say, Catherine, was I employed with this contract reads who? This contract reads Catherine Wamwangi, employed by XYZ with this agreement with Catherine and XYZ, and it is not with that department that I will be working in. So all sorts of things. Yeah, we'll continue working with teams, whether we like it or not. We'll continue working with teams in the society, in the communities. We'll continue working with teams at family level, you know, and we all know one or two people in our families who can be a bit difficult. When we say we do this, they're always questioning what why we are doing it and why it should be done. Okay, great. Allow me to share my screen, but also feel free to, I see that who has become the host now? I think someone is the host for me. So if there is, whoever is the host, if there are any burning questions, you can always let me know. but I'll make the best out of it. Okay, great. So how is everybody coping in these COVID times? Just a quick recap. Is everybody feeling that it's become more difficult at the place of work? Are you working remotely? Are you happy to work? Are you happy to work from home so that you don't have to work with the difficult people? And when we go for meetings with them, you don't even have to put on your video. They don't have to see you. You don't have to see them. Has it become better or has it become worse?
Both.
Both? Why both?
Okay, both because, okay, as you're saying, you don't have to see them day to day. So the interaction has reduced. So it's not a daily thing you can hide in your house for some time.
Yeah.
But also for me, with the kind of family I have, young children, so working from home is hard. But also you still can't avoid working, so you're working. But also, like for me, actually, even now taking calls, I dread, because when you see the person calling you and you pick at 8 in the morning and you're being blasted at 8 in the morning in your house.
Yeah. Terrible, yeah? Yeah, that's, so you look at that call and you wonder, oh my gosh, it's 8, it's not even 8:05, you know, I should be not in this state. So it just starts your day in a very, you have a very negative attitude towards the day and towards the person. Yeah, very difficult, I agree. Yeah. Someone else during these times, is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? Anyone else?
Sabrina.
Yeah, Sabrina.
Yeah, for me it's worse because like me, I have to go to work. So because it's essential, then we are very few at work, and our heads work from home. So you find that they push too much with, and you have to deliver within a short time, and they're constantly emotional of late. Yeah, so the demand is too much, and the team to work with you is not there. So you find you have to handle so much alone. Yeah.
True. Yeah. I keep on saying is that I keep on saying of late when we all interact, even this is a good interaction forum where what is happening, how we're feeling about it, are there opportunities for us to leverage on this kind of networks? Is there a place we can say there is much more support? I see this kind of support going your way. Would you mind plugging there? So I keep on saying whatever networks you form, even during these webinars, whatever you take out, try and practice it as much as possible. The pressure is real for the business to deliver. Many people are putting in much longer hours. We have seen that when we ask everybody, oh my gosh, I don't know where work is coming from, whether you're working from home or whether you're going to the office. I think the panic is real for businesses. The business plans are not as refined as we thought they would be. We are building the ship as we go along, and that ship, unfortunately, we don't know where the next part is going to be what. You get what I mean? So it's every day brings its own challenges, and those challenges means that people are more impatient, people are more fearful, there's anxiety. How is our business doing? What are we going to do with the people? So it's real when and for us to be able to manage teams and for leaders to know that they still need the people, leaders right now, what we need to do is support them more and to give them the reflection that your impatience is going to cause damage compared to what the results that you want to achieve. So it's for us to check there. But again, if they're not approachable, they don't endear themselves to people, then there's no way that we are going to survive, unfortunately. So just look at last week, the whole of last week. How many retrenchments have you had? I mean, we've had enough. And even where you sit, whether your business is doing well, whether you've been assured that there's no cause of concern, It's real concern of your friends losing jobs, of your relatives losing jobs, of your immediate family members losing jobs, you know, and those difficult circumstances, how people communicating, especially if it's a difficult person communicating that bad news. You will not even be able to look at the bad news in totality. You are just thinking, this person, I don't like this person. They're so difficult to work with, and they are giving me bad news. It becomes even worse. Yeah. So it's, of course, it's become a national concern where the Ministry of Labor is saying, well, what can we do more? Please don't retrench people, look at other ways. But if there's no money, there's no money. And where are people going as well? You know, so it's really difficult right now. And we should be more empathetic. We should be better listeners right now. We should be able to engage people more and just reflect on our own, you know. Am I the difficult one? Is that boss really the difficult one? Is my colleague really the difficult one? And to try and maybe weather the storm. Someone else? Someone else? Anything else? So, working with difficult people. Is that picture familiar? Yeah, we're shouting over each other.
Yes.
Yes.
Very familiar, isn't it? We get mad. We don't want to think about it. We have a bad day. We bang tables. We bang doors, you know, and we say, it's never that bad. They can as well fire me today, but I will have put my point across. Unfortunately, we all know that people leave their bosses, they don't leave their jobs, isn't it? They don't leave organizations. They leave their bosses, you know. It's that it is. If we don't have really elaborate plans and good programs to be able to look back and say, why is this person leaving? And people to give honest feedback. There's no day people will ever change. They say, even if I give you that feedback, what does it matter? After all, I'm going. I will never come back to this organization. And you lose the opportunity of going back to that person and saying, I'm leaving because of you. It has been going on for a long time and I cannot take it anymore. However, I would like to give you a brief rundown on how you treat others. And this is what you need to improve on. And people just go. And every time they think about you with such bad thoughts, isn't it? Who has ever left a job because of a difficult person, a difficult boss? No one? Okay. So just like the expectations that we have all alluded to, very, very, very good. Who is a difficult person, common behaviors of difficult people, difficult personalities at our place of work, techniques of how to deal with difficult people, whether they are your juniors, your peers, your seniors. And we look at a leap model where you can always, a very easy model on how to propel yourself and say, well, this is a difficult person. How am I going to navigate myself around there? Have you ever seen a junior person who is very difficult and you can do nothing about them? Have you encountered?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Powerful as they come,
Yes.
Yes.
Very
Powerful.
Awful, isn't it? And you're thinking, really? If I could pull the rug off you and you fall smack face on the floor, I would be able to do it. But you can't, isn't it?
Yes.
What gives them that power? Who gives them that power?
Sometimes it's the union.
The union, if you work in a unionizable environment, yeah, very true. Someone else, they are
godfathers.
They are godfathers. It's true. There's nothing you can do to me. Look at me. Watch moto ya kuotea mbali, si ndio?
Yes.
They even
Yeah.
tell you.
They even tell you. Yeah. So I keep on saying one of the things is that references and working with friends at organizations has shown that there's increased productivity. Because I vouch for you, I know your skill, I know your expertise, please come in, interview, and get the job. Or you can even be brought by your godfather, whoever your godfather, whatever it is. But why don't you make a statement of standing on your own and being independent for people even to forget that you were brought by a godfather, and you come the blue-eyed boy where people said it was worth being brought by your godfather because you don't step over people's heads and over people's brains, you know. You come in, fit in, you do a good job, everybody sings of your praise, but majority of the people we see who have earned their way there, they really want to come and antagonize. But even if you've been brought in by someone, and we're all feeling bad about being brought in by someone, come and prove yourself. You get what I mean? I think it makes such a good statement for you to come and stand on your own. But many of the people, many times is when people lose that opportunity, and they you never have a second chance to make a first impression, right? Never. So be very whatever. So let's be honest. Are you going crazy at your place of work due to other person's behavior or attitude? Can see my screen?
Yes.
Huh? Have
Yes,
you
we
ever
can.
worked? Okay. Have you ever worked with someone who does not seem to get along with you? Is it challenging to deal with difficult people at work? I'm sure we've all encountered difficult people at work, regardless of the industry, wherever you work in. It may be a colleague, managers, or even your bosses. Okay, so really difficult in terms of what, whatever. I would like us to reflect further and say, have you ever worked with someone who didn't just seem to get along with you, did not just seem to get along with? Let me pose a question then ask, have you ever looked at a person and you just feel, I don't like them. Me and them, I just don't like this person. What is that?
Yeah, it happens. Although now, as you're saying, as we grow and we become mature, you try to, you're like, let me just try.
Let me just try. Very
It
true.
may
Yeah.
change or something.
Yeah.
Because I've also seen people bringing in friendship, like colleagues who are friends.
Yeah.
So they end up messing up their work because of their friendship.
Because of their friendships, yeah. They're not able to demystify, or they become very competitive. You know, they're trying to compete against each other. Okay. Tell me, when you look at someone and you don't like them, the first instance, what is that?
Intuition?
It's what? Someone was speaking?
Yeah, Catherine.
Yeah, Karen.
I like the angle which you brought in. Probably you're the one with the problem.
True, sometimes it could be the problem, you know. You just look at someone and you don't like them. What is that? It must be witchcraft. Sorry. That emoji that goes like this, yeah. Ati damu zetu hazikupendana. What is that? What do you mean? You know, as we mature, we become better and give people second chances. You know, even God is a God of second chances, you know. And sometimes when you get to know someone, they are the sweetest and most resourceful. You wonder why you wasted 10 years just thinking this is not a good person. Have you ever gotten into those kind of situations?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sat on
Catherine.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes you look at somebody for the first time and you already don't like the person, but with time, then you are convinced that indeed the person is not good. So such situations also happen, and now you as a HR, you identify how best can you work with such a character.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course it takes time to I keep on saying one mantra that I took from the bank. Trust everyone, but verify everything, isn't it? Even if you came from one cashier number 5, You withdrew ₦1,000,000 shillings, for example, cashier number 5. Then you made a decision. You just thought, no, I think it's the wrong time to withdraw this 1,000,000 shillings. You go to cashier number 4. And because ₦1,000,000 shillings takes a bit of time to count, can you imagine cashier number 4 will still count it? Isn't it? Banks, that is what, trust everyone, verify everything. And sometimes it just takes time to make sure that I trust you, I'm going to work with you, and I didn't like you from the beginning. Unfortunately, you are proving it right with the kind of things that you do. And sometimes, okay, I didn't like you in the beginning, and then after time, I'm going to prove it to you. And especially as Africans, because the values and our belief systems are very strongly rooted in terms of respecting the older people. If I meet your mom today, if I met Jane's mom today, I will be, hi, mom, and very respectful, things like that. I will not invade her space just like that. Respect, If I meet your dad, I will respect. If I meet your grandmother, I even more respect, I will want to know her, how long. I mean, I'm very old by the fact that she's lived for many years and stuff like that. So it becomes very difficult sometimes for us to have authentic and truthful conversations. And then we have all these diversities coming to our places of work because of the multicultural kind of environments that we find ourselves working with, the global village that the world has become. And then we meet all sorts of people. The mix and match in the basket becomes real. We start lifting. We lift and we say, oh my gosh, we don't ascribe to this culture. You must be a very difficult person. But in their country, that's how they deal with things. You get what I mean? So it's difficult for us to be able to knock it out and say, how is this manifesting itself? What are my belief systems? What kind of culture do we have in this organization? They go against my beliefs. How am I going to be able to navigate the waters working in this environment? Because it's very difficult, and you find everybody difficult to work with. So many things will compound what it really triggers working with difficult people. So it's for us to be very alive to that. So I was giving you guys an example of I joined a board. I have a very good board. I was very happy to join the board and bring in my expertise, learn the business and stuff like that. But man, wasn't the CEO difficult to deal with? Extremely difficult. And since I was in the audit committee, it meant that we needed to audit the board. You get what I mean? Audit the organization, but also audit the board. And I used to dread, it wasn't worth it. I'm just thinking, I really wanted to be in this board. It calls for a lot of sacrifice to be in this board, but the CEO was impossible. And guess how old she was? She was 60 something, the age of my mother. So I'm looking at her, I should be respecting you. She was really good at her work. At her work, give it up for her. Very good technically, held the organization with a lot of passion, never wanted hemorrhage on any coin. The ship was steady, but her attitude towards people was terrible. And the audit committee. So the only thing that used to keep me sane was the chair of the audit committee was her age mate. So I used to cry out to her like a crybaby, me, Catherine Wamwangi, and say, look, this CEO, she's so difficult, and everybody knows she's difficult, but her work speaks for herself. And then I used to say, no, that's not how things are. No matter how good you are at your work, you must also treat people well. That is one of the things. So it went on for 2 years, and one day I surprised them with a resignation. A surprise. And only when she told me, she was begging me to stay. First, the chair, of course, I spoke to the chair and I say, I don't feel that there's value here. I feel very disrespected by the CEO. She doesn't see the value that this audit committee puts in. She rubbishes it, you know, and the board didn't really care much. You're doing your work, that's fine. It's whatever. But for me, I was not going to work in that kind of an environment. So the church convinced me to try and stay. And then I said, no, it's not worth it. When the term comes for elections, I will not go for another term for elections. I will step down. And so when the chair went to tell her of my decision, because it was like a week before the AGM, she couldn't believe. She came, you know, telling me, oh, Catherine, you can't go. You are the best. We've not had. I was just like, hang on. You never told me how good I was. You just kept bashing us, you know, not, it's as if we are not supposed to be here. I feel very welcomed and whatever. I told her with a lot of humility, with a lot of, you know, but I didn't spare her. I didn't spare her in the how she leads, her leading style, her leadership style, her whatever. So guess what? Karma. You know something called karma? So she's my neighbor in the estate that I live in. So we go working together. I tell her, walk quickly. You're 70 years. Keep up with me. So, so we are friends. We are cordial to each other. She said, "Oh, you left," and I said, "Yeah, I left because of whatever. So let's do other things." I still do business with the organization, but she's difficult, very difficult. Anyway, I'm sure you can all give a test to working with one or two difficult people. Anybody with an example? And how you resolved it? For me, I decided to go. It wasn't that serious. Anyone?
Catherine, for me,
yeah,
the person was very difficult, but also very racist.
Mm-hmm.
So actually what kept me going is I kept lamenting. I kept calling my mom and telling her, I have to leave, I have to leave. And she kept telling me, if you leave, she will never know how good you are. So keep moving on, keep moving on. And then actually what my mom told me is, are you working, her direct, not her boss now, are you working very well with her boss? I said, yes, I am. So she told me that's all that matters. Because eventually she'll not see how good you are because she's first of all racist. But if her boss is able to see how good you are, yeah, and don't change in your work, just be better every single time, then eventually she'll see how good you are. And when I was leaving, because it was a contract, she actually apologized. And she told me I was doing it deliberately to frustrate you. But I never saw you push back or anything. And in my head, and I told her, I never noticed, but in my head, I wanted to tell her off and everything, but I couldn't tell her off then. Yeah, so it was really hard working, especially with a difficult racist person.
Yeah, I can, whatever. And I like what you're saying is that I always wanted to do better. I became better. Always be one step ahead of your boss. Is the report ready? It was ready 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
I'm just polishing on it, you know. Is the project on schedule? Yes, look at the Gantt chart. In fact, we are behind, we are ahead. Come, the working time is at 9 o'clock. Be there at 9, you know. Never give room for them to pick up mistakes on whatever, especially difficult people. Always be ahead of your boss or your supervisor, whatever you call them at your place of work. It makes you feel much more accomplished. They can see that you do a good job. They rely on you, you know. And I keep on saying, employ people who are better than you. In my team, I employ people who are better than me because I know that I can be able now just to provide leadership. They'll be able to do what needs to be done. But you know what insecure people do? They employ people who are not as competent as they should be for that role so that they can hide behind the inefficiencies. But a good leader always looks for the best talent that they can get so that they have it an easier time. And don't hog the compliments. Let it go to your team. We know people who the team does the presentation and they're the ones going to present and taking all the glory, you know. Are terrible. Anyway, difficult people as they can. Anyway, so When we work with difficult people, it can make your working hours seem long. Instead of 8 hours, they become 48, and awkward, isn't it? But the next steps do not need to start looking for another job, or at least not yet. Or sometimes it calls for us to look for another job. There are many approaches you can take to stay in control, and we'll look at those approaches. And of course, some of us have already attested to that. So I like this workshop because it's things that we know, and it's just refreshing, and for us to be able to share experiences. Oh, it's just that it's not just happening to me, but it can happen. It's happening to other people as well. And this is how they are dealing with it. We all want to bring ourselves, our best selves to work, but certain situations or even people can make that difficult. When someone constantly challenges your ideas, isn't it? You're thinking about that, those people, takes all the credit or talks behind your back, you can feel like it's a personal attack. Everything, coming and whatever. And sometimes there's a season where you go through a real bad time at your place of work. Can you relate with that? There's just a time when nothing is going wrong. I mean, nothing is going right. Even on a project that you're working on, you seem to be dropping the balls. Nothing seems to be fitting in. And there's a time of calmness, a time of calmness completely where you just feel you're rising. Everything is really good. Everything is really nice. So how do you capitalize on those good times to make sure that even when hard times come, you can still be able to hold on tight and say, I've got the stamina, I've got the skill, I've got the ability to be able to move on. Okay, so personal attacks. Okay, moving on. We've all encountered a difficult colleague in one form or another. In fact, experts and research estimates that between 60 and 80% of reported difficulties at work are caused primarily by strained relationships with co-workers. Do we agree with that? Work is never an issue. Work is never an issue. And let me tell you what causes the strained relationships is about egos. Someone explain to us what ego is? She's got an ego. Oh my gosh. She should be leaving it at the door when she should be leaving it at home, not even at the door when she gets here. Huh? Tell me about egos. What's ego? Anyone? Nobody? I'll pick someone. Egos at our places of work.
Okay, let me give a shot, Martin, here.
Yeah.
Thank you. My understanding of ego is basically an attitude towards the next person. Mm-hmm. And most of the time is the person who is said to have ego feels is better off than the others, and he looks down upon the other.
Exactly. Person. You would not have put it any better. And I'm telling you, the one thing that causes friction, the primary thing when you look at it, if I'm not willing to cede my ego, there is nothing that is ever going to be done in an organization. Everybody has these big egos, it is me, it's my way, or it's the highway. Going jump into a dry lake, I'm thinking, well, I'm the one who knows, I'm the one who started it. How can it be? I'm the leader. I am not. You follow what I say and you do it and whatever. And you look back and say, oh my gosh, you've got a big ego. So when you think about all the frictions, if everybody would just look and say, hey, my ego is getting over me, the id and the id, those two, the ego and the id. If we all looked at it and say, I'm being unreasonable, perhaps we would become better people at our workplaces. You agree? Think of someone in your organization who never wants to cede their position because they think that they are ceding power, they are ceding the how people perceive them, how people look at them. But if they did, they would become a much better person. Anyone? Egos?
I have an
Kristen,
example.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kristen here.
Yeah.
Yeah, ego is where one feels too important and too full of himself or herself, so that you must be recognized. And this kind of situation makes people quite uncomfortable at workplace. Because, for example, if you're a woman, you're the leader of an organization, maybe men are not supposed to take instructions from a woman because that is their ego. They are the household head. So that household head, in quotes, is carried to the workplace.
Yeah.
Or maybe you are also a head of a department and you're a young person and you're supposed to direct, delegate to people who are younger than you. They feel that being an older person, I have more experience, I should be the one who should be seen. Yeah, so that kind of ego. And then we also have people who are so rigid. It is this and this, it will be, and it will never change. So whether there's change in technology, change in different situations, that is what it is, and that is how it should be. Then we also have these people who are really subjective. They don't look at things objectively, and now they tend to be defensive. Yeah, so all those summarize up to egos.
Yeah, very, very well put. Couldn't have put it any better. And it's all about sometimes perceptions, the prejudice, the biasnesses that we have. Some could be circumstances that we have gone through, and that becomes the reality that we have. But I keep on saying, where is your reflection every morning? Where is your reflection at the end of the day? And I'm using some of the terms that we use in coaching. We are very, you should reflect as a coach, and also the person that you're coaching, your client, and sometimes you call them a coachee. How are you reflecting back in the situation that you are in? What are you learning out of it? How can you become a better person? And today, if you don't have this book in your library, please quickly go and buy it. Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Coleman. Is that here? It's a book that everybody should have, in terms of what are we saying. And there are many emotions now that we are looking at, from emotional intelligence. Now we're also looking at the social content. I mean, how are you dealing with people? Because things have moved too fast for us to be able to interact. We'll continue being social beings, and this ego thing always comes in our way. And it's something that we need to continue discussing. Research shows that getting along with people you work with is vitally important for your company's overall productivity and your own personal sense of happiness and fulfillment. You don't want to work in a place where you are not happy. You go there from 8 to 5. Many people that we interact with right now say, hallelujah, I'm working from home. Whether I have 4 children, we have 1 device at home, the teacher is saying that we all log in. It's never that serious. Anyway, did you hear what Magoha said yesterday? You teach your children at home, especially the skill that you have. It was hilarious, but very serious. So some people are just like, I don't have to go. I don't need to be there. That's not an environment that I want to be. But remember also what we are saying right now, and it's become very true in the 4th revolution that we are in now, is that industrial revolution, is that we are saying work is a what? Has always been a space. It's not a place. It's not a location. The more we get into that, but again, there are all these conversations which are coming up and say, so how is human interaction going to be? How are onboarding processes going to be? Who will know what is our company culture if we all work in different locations, sitting in different parts of the world, but we are not coming together? So that's the next big thing that we'll have to challenge ourselves as HR and look for ways and systems and processes for us to be able to keep the culture together and our values. But working closely in potential stressful situations doesn't always bring out the best in people. So it's important to know how to address and de-escalate conflicts before they impact your quality of life and work or compromise your job overall. Okay, so important. So is HR responsible for solving conflicts? Is it HR's responsibility?
I don't
Christian,
think so.
again, it's not.
I don't think so.
It's not only HR's responsibility. It is everybody. It is
It's everybody's responsibility. Someone else?
Jane here. Especially line managers have a responsibility to manage conflict within their teams if they're going to have high performing teams.
Exactly. Very important. Line managers have the responsibility. But what do line managers do?
They tell people, go to HR.
Exactly. Go to HR. Who is HR? You see how they put us in trouble? How they give us work that we should not be handling? That is not correct. They should end the conflict there. Unless it really needs to be unpacked from our handbook, what is happening, this contracted conflict that is there. But conflicts should actually be handled at that level with the line managers. But can you imagine if the line manager is the difficult person? You know? And I know many line managers who are very difficult, very, very, very difficult. They expect people to deliver the moon, which themselves they cannot even deliver. Do you see them all the time? And you wonder, I mean, if you cannot be able to deliver that, why do you think your team members will be able to deliver that? They need to be a balance, and they need to be fairness. There needs to be transparency in everything that we do. Okay. Someone else who thinks that where should conflicts be handled?
Yeah. Okay, Karari here. I think HR should not be the one dealing with the conflicts in departments. If you make it a HR issue, even those people will make it your work. So you'll have time. So you will not have time to work. You'll be dealing with the conflicts all the time. The line managers know that it is their work to solve, unless now it's a contractual something or it's beyond them or the bosses have problems here. But they should be able to deal with it at their level.
Yeah, true. HR is always there to offer the technical advice, being very partial, listening. And one of the competencies that every HR needs to develop is strong active listening skills. Underline that. And in fact, this seminar can end after I say that. Cannot underestimate the power of powerful listening to the said and to the unsaid. Okay, so let's go back. Let's dive in real deep now, and let's define what's definition of difficult behavior. Anyone? Definition of difficult behavior. I stand, I sit. Definition of difficult behavior. Anyone?
So difficult behavior can be defined by anyone who is not cooperative in a working place. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone who's not cooperative at the workplace.
We are supposed to work as a team, so you need cooperation. So if you are not cooperating, you are difficult.
If you're not cooperating, if you're not collaborating, you are difficult. Yeah. Okay. Someone else? Definition of difficult behavior.
This is Lucy.
Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Catherine. I would say difficult behavior is behavior that is not the norm. Say in the workplace, it could be behavior that is not normal in the workplace.
Okay, difficult behavior that is not normal at the workplace. Someone else? People who do not collaborate. The first one, behavior that is not normal at the workplace, maybe does not live with the values that we espouse as a business or a company. Someone else? Difficult behavior.
Okay, Martin here. Okay, while agreeing with my colleagues, I see difficult people as being unreasonable, even where reason is actually, very clear.
Yeah. Even when things are rather obvious,
But very obvious, and you'll still find somebody, wavering towards unreasonableness.
Exactly, yeah. Everybody agrees that north is north, you know,
Yes.
and they're trying to tell us, no, it's south is north, isn't it? Very obvious things that, whatever, yeah, okay. Anybody else? Okay, very true. Okay, so definition of difficult behavior, you've alluded to it already, is difficult behavior is essentially that which inhibits the performance of others, you know, through lack of collaboration, like what we have said, things that which are pretty obvious, like 1, 2, 3 is 6, and they say it is 7, you know, just not living our values inhibits the performance of others. Left alone, it will get worse, affect more people, and continue to incur hidden costs in the organization in which it occurs. Which could be some of the hidden costs? Hidden costs, incur hidden costs. There are many hidden costs.
Maybe delay in executing assignments.
Delay in executing of assignments, so it means that the value chain is not moving in the way it should be moving. Another hidden cost.
Okay, Karari here. Another one is also Jane here. I think another one is also duplication, because you keep making different people do the same thing, you know. So duplication of it can bring hidden costs.
Exactly, duplication of effort, you know, because the mistakes are occurring, so we have to do that all the time. Another hidden cost.
Lillian here.
Yeah, Lillian.
You find that the staff are stressed, and so they end up, some of them even become sick, absenteeism, and just they're frustrated.
Exactly. We lack motivation and everybody becomes stressed, you know. We really stop becoming fully engaged in the organization. Hidden costs. Other types of hidden costs.
Okay, Martin here. I see hidden costs in aspects like in subordination, saboteur, you know, activities where you really want to do certain things which are not acceptable.
Exactly, yeah. So those things which are rather not obvious, and those really are things that would manifest themselves if you were to quantify them, you would not be making any profit. Leave the ones which are really glaring at you, out of the box costs, which say, too bad, I'm leaving. You know, I'm going to leave this organization. That is right. We know that Catherine is leaving because of bad behavior in the organization. Another one would be like your attrition rate, your training rates, you know, those costs that you know, where's the hemorrhage coming from? And when you look back, it's between the hidden cost and the obvious cost. And how do you make sure that that loop is sealed and sealed tightly? It in terms of making sure that the people you let in your organization really have the best interest at heart. But you'll never be able to do that, unfortunately, my fellow practitioners, until you have a trusting culture in your organization. You know, if you don't have open communication, if you're not able to call a spade and not a big spoon, you'll never be able to get rid of difficult behavior in the organization. And I'm not saying that difficult behavior cannot bring very good results, because we're able to have those hard conversations. We're able to say, how did this help us? Even you can see the best in difficult people, and it can be rewarding for the organization. But if majority of you have 80% people with difficult behavior and only 20%, who's going to get more? Who's going to get fatigued faster? obviously the 20%, isn't it? So they need to be a balance. There'll always be politics at the workplace. There'll always be bad, rotten potatoes at the workplace. There'll always be people who do not think that this organization has anything to offer me. But those people should be far and few between for them to see exactly how things are going to be, how things are supposed to be done. I like to give this example is like, let's say you grew up in a family that that you guys were thieves, and that's not a good example anyway, but let me just give it. And we like stealing, you know, we like stealing from other people's homes, other people's shambas. It becomes the norm. But you go out to the society, you go to school, you go to high school, you go to college, university, or whatever it is, you come to the workplace, and you just realize, Allah, people should not be stealing. And you just look back and say, that was bad behavior at family level. And you choose to change as an individual, you know, and you become a better person, and you don't, you go back to the family and say, what we do is wrong. We should not be doing that. That's the same thing. You come in with a difficult behavior. You're a difficult person, and you look and say, things are done differently in this organization. I like what they do. I think I should take a step back and be able to make myself a better person. And the process might be hard because you've already learned a behavior, but in the end, you just think, wow, I like what these people do. I enjoy what they do. I think they're better than me, and I'm willing to change. Only then will we become better people in the society and at our places of work. But it starts with me. If you're not going to start with yourself, it becomes very difficult for you to ever get back to where you want to get to where you want to be. So most difficult behavior, unfortunately, you might not agree with this, is accidental because we learn it. But it can also be as a result of an intentional thought. You see, like that boss who gave us that example, sorry that I don't remember your name. Yeah, he said she was difficult and she was also racist, and it was intentional. But sometimes it's accidental, and sometimes just I'm made like this. Have you ever had people, I'm made like this, I'm an impatient person, I'm made like this, I look for fault, I make like this, I'm made like this. Who made you like that? Who made you like that? You made yourself. Accidental, then it becomes a habit, you know. But the people who have the intentional thought, people are worse than the accidental ones, because the accidental ones say, Allah, and that was not good. I should be able to whatever. There is no pride. There is no wisdom of thinking that when you're an impatient person, you're a good person. You know, when a leader says, I'm impatient, I want things done, it's the worst thing you can say as a human being. And we know those people, don't we? I don't like people. You know, I'm very judgmental. I'm manipulated. I'm not going to change my mind. Just listen to yourself say those things. And people are looking at you and just wondering, really? You really erode your brand value when you have bad behavior, when you have vices, which you know that they should be changed into virtues. So when you look at those people, you should stop them right there if they're your friends. I don't like traffic. I hate traffic. I get very impatient. You need to hold your friend right there and say, what have you just said? Because as we do that, it becomes a habit and it's ingrained with us. So you want to make sure that you are the only one who's being seen, and you don't want to give other people a chance. Okay? Anybody? An example around what we have said? Accidental?
Kristen here.
Yeah.
Really not an example, but I've been thinking through these 2 points that you have highlighted on definition of difficult behavior. And one thing that most people do not think about is the identity of the organization that you're working for. Because when there is difficult behavior, it affects performance, it increases attrition rate, and at the end of the day, people will complain because one will not talk positively of an institution or an organization he or she has left. So we need to look at this at the bigger picture. What effect does this have on the organization, the business center, or the government institution?
Exactly. Your difficult behavior needs to be a strong strategy anchored within your diversity and inclusion programs, because that is where it should be. And I like what Christine is saying in terms of how does it really affect the definition, really, the hidden costs, what we should all be doing, the accidental and stopping people right on their tracks so that it doesn't manifest itself to become the norm, you know, the intentional thoughts, you know, how do we make sure that you don't get there and be able to arrest it as quickly as it should be, nipping things in the bud. Someone else, another thought? Another thought?
I'm also thinking when you're talking of difficult people, and actually this is something I've been reading through when it comes to mental health. There are actually people who have issues of mental health, and there are also people who are it's issues of personality disorders.
Yeah.
So you might look at it and you're just saying, oh, this person is a bully, or this person is lazy, but it's issues of mental health.
Very
So
true.
as HR practitioners and even as employees and colleagues, there are issues that we need to look out for in regard to mental health.
Exactly. And how I was actually going to get there and say that when you encounter a difficult person, do you just label them you're difficult? Do you get to the crux as to why they are a difficult person? You know that 20% of your workforce, 20%, let's say this was our company. We are how many people on this webinar? We are 23. 20% of us are going through issues, real deep issues that if we were all to discuss them, then you would say, let me just take my trouble and run with it because I don't think it is that much. And that's why I said it is so important for HRs to listen to the said and to the unsaid. It is very important for us to be able to have duty of care and to be able to endear ourselves with confidentiality for us to know what is happening in the organizations. Because the thing is that it will actually show on your performance in overall performance as an individual and how you meet the organization objectives. So mental health, mental wellness, a big topic that everybody is discussing now. We had started discussing it a couple of years ago. How are we helping people at our places of work? Mental well-being in these times of COVID-19, how are we making sure that that is not just lip service, but we are actually actualizing it? You know, because then it's something we'll encounter these people and they will continue to being at our places of work. And sometimes they're really good performance, you know, all these disorders that come with it. And sometimes they are so deep that they need, of course, interventions from experts, but sometimes they could be things that they've just undergone quickly. You know, their relationships have just broken at home with their children, with their spouses, with their partners, whoever they could be. They have just forgone their home that they took such a long time to build. They're having problems financially. I mean, the issues are real at the workplace. So for us to be able to look at Catherine as an individual, for us to be able to look at Lillian as an individual, for us to be able to look at Martin as an individual and learn who they are, their personalities, and knowing that this is what Martin is, but all of a sudden, something has changed in Martin, you know, and just not label them, oh, Martin all of a sudden is a very lazy person. They do not. It is time for us to take the extra step and say, Martin, is there an issue that you'd like to share with me? But if the environment is not trusting, if people take you, see you as a HR person whom they cannot confide with, you are not, you do not include people in conversations, in discussions. You're always making the decision without including them. Nobody will ever be able to open up to you. And then in there, you just have the label of difficult behavior. Anybody would like to add to that? I've worked with people who have really been, who are depressed, bipolar, you know, one day they're happy, the next 2 weeks they're very sad, you know, and how do you work in that space? You know, people, we know family members, you know. Anybody? How are we dealing with that? And then even how do we make sure that we protect those people within other colleagues in a way that people will not judge them, you know, when people, when they say, oh, she's depressed, no wonder, kumbe, you know, with a sneer and a bad demeanor on our faces and our body language. How do we make sure that we can empathize? You know, are we having those conversations that in our town hall meetings, in our departments, you know, this is what it is. Maybe without saying names, let's have a candid discussion around mental wellness and mental health and those kind of things, so that people we start softly, you know, in a subtle way, and then we take it a notch higher and say, these people, they're not difficult to work with, it's this like this, you know, and people start thinking, kumbe anaweza kuwa na kashida, ko kashida ndio kana msumbua atarudi, you know. Are we doing that at our workplaces? Or we are just think those are extra hidden, those are extra costs that the business cannot bear? Anyone doing anything differently or an example around that?
Jane here. I think this is where the employee assistance programs come in as well, because we have, depending on the culture of the organization, you may have people who don't want to openly speak because maybe then the environment is quite toxic. So every time you have your town halls or you have your chats, open chat forums, when the line managers are having their interactions with the team, always say, by the way, remember, we have a free service employee assistance program. You can call for any time. It's 24/7. So always keep, because we might not have people who are free enough to walk in and actually talk about it, because like you say, they might be labeled or fearing that people will know what is happening.
Yeah, true. Preach it, keep preaching it until people get it, you know. Yeah, someone else, there was someone else who wanted to speak as well.
Yeah, Martin again here. Okay, just for the record, I'm also an advocate of the High Court.
Excellent.
And mental illness is actually considered an illness like any other, illness at the workplace. And as an employer, you really need to have a lot of regard to this like any other disease, to the extent that if, for instance, you eventually even have to terminate an employee on the basis of a mental illness, then you must actually follow the law.
Yeah.
So in our environment, we have had a good number of cases where we actually came to learn much later that some of our employees were actually undergoing, these mental, conditions, and they were actually on treatment.
Yeah.
And once in a while, an employee comes to the workplace when he has not taken his or her medicine. And if, as a HR practitioner, you do not really delve deeper and find out the real issues, then you might actually be dealing with an issue which you think is a difficult person, when in actual fact, you're actually dealing with a sick employee who needs assistance. And as you say, these employee assistance programs are also very important.
Yeah. It's important for us to be able to. There's a thin line in terms of the business objectives and the strategy that it wants to achieve, always rush to make sure that we are ahead of competition. We are jumping the queue for everyone. We want to be seen as the winner in the industry. There is a thin line of pulling people with you, you know, and many CEOs forget the people, you know, they are so far gone, and then they look behind and say, what are you guys still doing behind? I'm already in front. The leader should be giving the vision. And then that thin line of where Martin has said, we must also be able to look at the law and what the law provides for. Because you don't want to be slapped with unlawful dismissals or unlawful terminations. Very thin line, you know, difficult person. Yeah, the balance is real. And as HR practitioners, that's why these seminars, these workshops really heightens our professionalism in terms of what we are taking back to their whatever. Look at it from every individual. That's what I said. Look at this person, look at this person. What do they have? But unless you have a trusting environment, you'll never be able to know that, well, there's a problem with this person. And I'm sure you all try to make sure that people can come to you and you keep that information the way it should be, or just say whatever. And even as HRs, how are you looking after yourself in these COVID times? That's the one question that I'm always asking HR practitioners. All of us, how are you looking after yourselves? It's a very difficult time. Everybody is looking up to you to provide solutions. You know, remote working at home in a day. You're supposed to be a superhero and make sure that everybody is working. Who's looking after you? Who's looking after the CEO as well? Those two people right now, they've got a lot of work in this pandemic time, you know, so please look after yourselves. If you need to check in just once in a while with a counselor, with a friend that you trust, and say, this is how I feel, how I have got a bit of anxiety, give me the reality. Is my head still screwed right? You know, it's important to have that. So don't shy away from reaching out for help from all of us. You know, I'm sure you know one or two people who can help you there. So don't shy away. Okay, great. Moving on. Difficult people are found in every workplace. Unfortunately, we cannot eliminate them. Difficult people come in every variety, shape, size, and figure that you can imagine. But how difficult a person is for you to deal with depend a lot on such factors as your self-esteem, through it, your self-confidence for you to be able to address the issue, how closely you must work with them on a daily basis, and your professional courage. Professional courage, I say by, are you someone who knows your stuff? That even if I'm given this project, I'm still able to execute it. So your self-esteem, there's some people who have very low self-esteem. They hide themselves in a corner. They never have anything to say because sometimes of the things that they have gone through. Your self-confidence for you to be able to speak up and say with respect, with decorum, and say this is not going on well. And how closely, you know, if they're in another department, they see Tuko China and you only talk once a month, you can say, okay, that once a month, and it's for 30 minutes, I can deal with it. Okay. Dealing with difficult people is easier when the person is generally obnoxious or when the behavior affects one or more people. You can team up together and address the behavior or inform management or HR to get help addressing their employee before it gets out of hand, isn't it? If it's just one person, you're able to deal with them. So a couple of weeks ago, I was dealing with my colleague who sits in the US. We are peers. So he called me and because he's American, they use a lot of swear language, a lot. And because we have a global presence, a lot of global presence. For me as Catherine, I do not appreciate, and they all know that you cannot use swear words, whether it's in a meeting, when I'm there. And my boss says, let me just remind you guys, in this meeting, we cannot use swear words because the kind of swear words they use is unbelievable. And I say, that's not our culture, first and foremost, but that's, you know, when I say just it's not directed at you. I say it's not appreciated. We work in a multiple multicultural environment. So he was very upset because his hiring processes were taking longer than expected. So he went on and on and on and used every swear word in the world. And remember what I said? I do not appreciate swear words. I let him finish. And at the end of the meeting, I reminded him, XYZ, I have counted 90 swear words since you started this discussion. I first want an apology before we can discuss the way forward and action points. I stood up for myself and he said, oh, Catherine, I'm so sorry. You know, it was not directed at you. But I said in that conversation, because I'm the owner of the project, I felt that it was directed at me. And he just apologized and whatever. So it depends. And those are some of the challenges that you will always face working with people from different backgrounds and this diversity thing that whatever, even if we have all these values and missions and whatever we call them, but they will still come to it. And it got me, actually, it started making me feel as if my heart is beating. But I said, my self-awareness, how am I getting out of this? Before I take the meeting back and I own the meeting, I will first need an apology, you know? And he's a pleasant person. He didn't mean bad, of course. And they never mean bad. I mean, they never mean bad, but some people really mean bad, you know? So, and why I say if it's generally one person, it's easier for us to be able to call them out. But again, if it's the head of the institution, the CEO, who will call them out? Who is the brave person to put in the suggestion box? Hey, boss, you're very bad. Who opens the suggestion box? Si yeye mwenyewe. And read and maybe put it in the dustbin and becomes worse and becomes very judgmental. Anybody with it's easier to call out one person and bring to HR, this person is a bully, this person does not treat us well. But if it's a lot of people and you have to work with them, it becomes a bit more difficult compared to where it is. Anybody with an example? Another example and what you have done about it? You remember self-esteem, self-confidence, and how closely you work with them and your professional courage? Those four are very important to deal with difficult people. Anybody?
Kristen, here, I do have a comment. There are situations where they come to you as the HR with complaints or issues that you have to deal with. But mostly what I do, I ask them, what steps did you take when this issue happened? Because when you keep on saying, I'll handle it, so everybody will give you their issues. So imagine if you're working in an organization with 200 staff. Really, what else will you do apart from conflict management? So, you know, when you ask them what steps did you take, then it also makes them also internalize and say, hey, there's a role I was to have played here before I reach this level where now I talk to the HR.
Exactly. What steps did you take? How did you address the situation? Okay,
Yes,
very true. Someone else?
Yeah, Lillian here.
Yeah.
Looking at those factors which you've put down, self-esteem, self-confidence, and how you work closely with them. For me, I have tried, you know, it's been like 2 years. And as much as you may have your self-esteem, your confidence, but after some time it gets to you, and even you know yourself and professionally, but you know, like somebody is always criticizing or finding fault, even if you try to be perfect. Because if you do this, it's wrong. If you don't do it, why didn't you not do it? And I reached a point, actually discussed with someone, and I said, it's like a wife who is battered. Because you know, everyone is telling you know how they are. You need to just hang in there, just vumilia. This is, you know, as you're saying, if it's somebody old and all that. But I actually asked them, for how long will you put up with this? And you know, it's like a battered wife. They'll either one day run away, divorce you, or kill you. So for me, I'm looking at, I'd rather take the option of divorce, whereby look for another job.
Yeah. You remember where I said, where was that? does not mean you start looking for a job, at least not yet, or maybe you need to move. You get what I mean? Because then it becomes very difficult for you to work with those people if they're not going to change. Have you tried to talk to them, Lillian?
The issue is also that they are the seniors. So
they are senior, yeah. And do other people feel the same working with them?
Yes, but more or less for them, because they don't work very closely, they can, you know, like the way you say, I don't need to see her on a daily basis. But for you, because you work together and you report there, it's a continuous, you know, day from morning to evening. You have to interact.
It can be grinding, and you're already in this quagmire of hidden costs, isn't it? This is where you are at right now. Anybody, any suggestion of how we can help Lillian? Senior people, difficult. How do we help? Still with the same else, she doesn't want to lose her self-esteem. She's got good confidence. She has to work with them on a daily basis. She's up with her professional game and making sure that she delivers. But still, is the solution to move, to start looking for another job? Anybody?
I think, Catherine, this is Jane.
Yeah.
I think everybody has to, I mean, whichever situation you are in, you have to make a decision what is going to work for you. Because remember, working is a choice. Wherever you work is your choice. Maybe for some of us, it's easy. I've had some difficult directors, and I'm talking about global directors that I have to work with. But luckily for me, these are directors that network directors who are revolving. They only come for 3 years and they're not there longer than 3 years. So you ask yourself, can I stomach this person for the next 3 years? Because we are not in the business, we are not in the Jesus business of changing them to be better people. So where I see that they can't change, and my sanity to be able to deliver and to be able not to be stressed or to end up getting sick. Sometimes the option is to leave. Just like she said, a bad relationship. Sometimes you must walk away. Especially if you're working very closely, especially when you're a senior manager and you must work directly. Every single day you're with the director, you must interact. Surely your health is better than all these other things ya kuvumilia.
Exactly, yeah. And you never know, unfortunately, you never know whom you're going to meet. At the interview stage, it's very dicey. And why I say it's very dicey is because good jobs are few and far between, isn't it? So you're thinking, I don't have another job. I have been looking. This is still going on. For sure, I need to move away. It's the best thing for me. It's still hard to come. This job puts bread and butter on the table for my family. You are there. I remember where I was working for an NGO. I employed a transport manager. We needed a transport manager for the big fleet of vehicles that we had. So he came. He was a good candidate. We onboarded him, and one day I said, let's go for lunch. You know, the way you just say, well, you're new, how are you finding it? Maybe it was 2 months into the whatever. And he told me, Catherine, I want to tell you my life story. I was not going to ask him about his life story. Me, I just wanted lunch. You know, let's go to the canteen, let's have lunch and whatever. And he says, it's like I've been born again, rebirthed. I came from a place where it cost my health, and now I developed epileptic. She was epileptic. Is that how we pronounce it here? Then, of course, he had not told us at the interview stage, and I told him, tell me, the boss was so bad. I told him, why didn't you quit? So he didn't quit because he was the overall breadwinner for his young family and the extended family. We all know this, whatever's. Then I said, Martin, oh, sorry that I, whatever, dropped his name. what can we do for you? What would you like HR to do for you to make sure that he said, so far, so good. In fact, this work, I can do it with my eyes closed. But I knew that he has now an underlying condition. Me, myself, I didn't go whatever. I said, we need to proof his office so that if he ever got an epileptic attack, that he's comfortable. If he ever fell, and I said, would it be an option for also us to break down his walls so he has someone? His office was very close to me. Guess what, guys? The epileptic attack happened a week later after we had that whatever. Luckily, I knew what it was. We had an in-house clinic. The doctors came quickly, and of course, it was also every corner had a doctor. It was a health organization, and whatever came and whatever. The duty of care, how we really made his office to be that if he ever fell on his own, he would not be, before help comes, he would not hurt himself, his desks, everything. And we stopped him from driving because he could drive the pool car. He was a transport manager. Guess what the organization did for him for duty of care? Make sure that he had a driver, a permanent driver allocated to him. From a toxic environment to a place where he got sick, he had to live with a condition, a lifetime condition, because of a job, because of a person, to a place where he got relief of whatever it is. So don't wait until, like what Jane is saying, don't wait until it costs your health and your life and you have to redo it. And every time you look back and say, what was I doing there? But I didn't have another place to go. But even right now, we are such good friends. He still calls up on me and whatever. So I'm sure you can always have these examples, and you know them many, where we've been able to deal with difficult people, and how you came up on the other side and say, it was not worth it, but it's worth it. It's a choice that we make. We make a choice to work in that organization. We make a choice to stay, depending on our circumstances, until we get something else and we resign, and those are the people who resign and guess let me give you another example. So someone resigned because of a very difficult boss and said, bring the equipment and what is the password, before, so that we can flash and whatever. Guess what the password was? Anybody can guess. I have to say this word here, but the password, wrote it down. This is the password. The password is beach. Can you imagine? That was the password. That was finally what they told that person. That is what you are. You get what I mean? So it's very difficult. Let it never get there. And of course, difficult people should try and change themselves, but also we should try and get the environment to be strong enough to call them out, okay? Example, before I move on. Common behaviors of difficult people at the workplace. Anybody? Good, okay. What does it mean to be a difficult person? By difficult people, we mean those behaviors or attitude that do not match ours. They have certain characteristics that don't match ours. They have certain personality traits that make it difficult for you to communicate with them. Push our buttons to push their agenda. They keep pushing our buttons and then they want to push their agenda. Rarely listen to other people's options. Don't pitch in, but still expect things to get their own way. They're lazy, They hide behind their inefficiencies. And I'm sure you can attest to that. And there are many more, people's behavior and attitudes that don't match others. And I remember someone saying at the very beginning when we had our expectations and what we were discussing about difficult people. Okay. So what are some of the common behaviors of difficult people at work. What do they include? Some of the things that really, you know, certain traits difficult from yours. They push our buttons, rarely listen to other people's opinions. They can be as many as we are in this workshop. Many as they are. Many as they are. Let's start off. Anyone? When I put them up, you'll say, ah. What irritates you at the workplace? People who do what? Let me put it like that.
Okay. Some of the behaviors of difficult people, you find they like trashing people's work, you know, just belittling efforts of the teams. Most of them, you'll find that they like to shout at people. They might be shouting at people. They always look for fault finding, even when you've done your work well. They will look for, like you had started in the morning where you said you didn't put a comma in that sentence. And I'm like, what is really a comma? Anyway, they always want to be the ones taking the glory, even for other people's work. Yeah, just some of those.
Yeah. Someone else? Well, say Jane. Yeah. Captured quite a number of them very well. Someone else?
Christine here.
Yeah, Christine.
They complain a lot and never appreciate.
Yeah, complain a lot. Hey, even the door knob has just broken up that morning. The maintenance guy has gone to look for screws. They're always complaining, always, yeah. They never appreciate. We should have a, what is that of gratitude? A sense of gratitude in everything that we do. Someone else?
Okay.
Someone else? Was it Teresa? Someone else?
What? Yes. Okay. I would say that they are rude. They yell a lot, and they are lazy, and they want to be behind schedule. You have planned on how to do something. There's a project. They want to be behind schedule, and there's no reason for that. It's just to make other people get it to where they are.
Exactly.
They also like walking over people's backs.
Yeah. Hovering over, you know, just they want to irritate you all the time. Someone else?
Hi. They never have a good opinion about anything, and they sometimes they tend to walk like they have this dark cloud over their heads. And other times, as Teresia said, they wait until the last minute. Like an example we had, we were preparing a proposal. I work for an NGO, and the deadline for submitting of that proposal was 12 noon, and then they call at 11:45 to now say that they need to have an idea or a change made in that document. So we felt it was really unreasonable because we had been waiting for over a week for that person to respond. Yeah, so for me, I considered it that very, very rude.
Yeah. Always, you see, don't pitch in, but still expects things to be done their own way. Yeah. Push buttons to push the agenda. They don't even realize that when you win this proposal, it's for their own good. That if we don't win the proposal, we will not have funding. Where were they a whole week, and they should be giving the input, they should be taking the lead. We are 15 minutes to submission and they still want to do it. Yeah, very frustrating. Someone else?
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Sabrina speaking.
Yeah.
I believe some difficult people do not like sharing information. And then, as a result of not sharing information, they like blaming others. And then also I find that some of them are part of, gossiping within the organization. They play that part.
Yeah. They hoard information. Do you see those people, old generation of our mothers' times and our grandmothers' times, where they used to go with the files at home, or they lock the that was their way of working, holding power, not sharing information. You have institutional memory. If you are called upon, you will not come back to give the information. You know, difficult people. Not wanting, and they're always gossiping at the coffee pot. They're the first ones to start the rumor mill. You know, like HR. Unfortunately, it's difficult to keep the balance. And I would like to give an example, and you can all relate with it. So we've gone to the board and we're expecting a salary increment. You know, everybody in the corridors is happy, thinking, you know, the salary, we might have it. You know, you've been working very hard with finance to look at your P&L, to look at the turnover. How is it going? Can we be able to give color? Is it going to be 2%? Is it going to be 5? Is it going to be 10? You know, but everybody is looking at you and saying, are we going to have color? They all know that it's not time to share the information. The board has not approved the percentage of increment that is going to be given, but people want to push you and say, she doesn't even want to tell us, and she already knows, or she wants to take all the money home. When time is right, you will communicate. Dear colleagues, we are pleased to inform you that the board has approved a cost of living adjustment of 5%. We already knew. Poleni kwa HR. In my next lifetime, I doubt that I will become HR. People are always hovering over you, wanting information that is not ready to be disseminated. It's confidential, and you should hold that tough until it's time for us to be able to do that. So quickly, do you see people who are always talking on their phone? Matatu imeshikwa. Imeshikiwa wapi? Roysambu. Kwa nini? Sasa utafanya nini? And they're in the office. Don't they just irritate you? Taking credit for other people's work, showing others how unimportant they are at the workplace, double standards, saying something and doing something else, yelling at others, backstabbing others to get ahead, undermining the professional contribution of others, and sometimes it can even be done in public. What a shame. Gossiping and discussing others, stealing ideas and presenting them as their own, running with it, constantly blaming others, not pulling their actual share and weight on a certain assignment or project or work, showing off as they are, as if they are genuinely concerned about work by sending emails at irregular hours, playing dirty politics for all sorts of things. Okay. Anything else you would like to add? I'm sure you can all see this. And how does it make you feel? Now we know that these common behaviors, but let's talk about how does it make you feel as an individual?
Okay, Martin here. First of all, just to add on one of the characteristics I see in these difficult people is they're always trying to recruit other people to be part of their, their party, and they as much as possible try to seek sympathy. That they are not the bad people in the team. But of course, as a supervisor, I feel bad whenever I see some of this behavior, and it pains me. It hurts that you always wish you do not have them, or if there's something that you can actually do about them. Thank you.
Yeah, it makes you feel bad, you feel sorry. Yeah, Someone else, how does it make you feel?
I concur with Martin. For me, it stresses me like every day, because like where I work, I'm surrounded with people. Like my supervisor constantly fights me because I think I'm ahead educational wise. So he makes my day always, it's not really fun. And then he's recruited so many others now to fight you. But now the best thing I do is, I think I hold on to prayer, I hold on to hard work. So I work hard. I even remember at a certain point, he prevented me from getting promotions. I don't know what he says to the other heads, but sometimes I get funny reactions, but I always give the best. So at the end of the day, I still got my promotion and I believe I'm still going to get, but my day is never good at work.
And that is Monday through Friday, every day. How long have you been in that organization? How long have you served?
5.
5 years?
Yeah.
And you've had the same boss for 5 years?
Yeah, before he wasn't there,
yeah,
he backstabbed a HR boss, a principal, who was taken out to an outside station somewhere in Baringo. Then he was brought from administration now to HR to be the senior. So I think that is his survival tactics. I don't know, but it is not good, because at the end of the day, I always say, at the workplace, you need to work as a team. You need to accept somebody's strength so that the workplace can be productive, so that you can achieve the overall, objective of the organization. But when somebody is constantly fighting and then he recruits a team that fights you and will not listen to you, they just, it is not easy. It's tough. Yeah, it stresses you. You're always contemplating on leaving work, but at the end of the day, it's just work hard. I think God at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, be grateful, but how long can you? Yeah, as we said, it's a choice. How you work with such people, you've learned how to work around them. A terrible supervisor, for lack of a better word, in terms of feeling insecure with the kind of people. You remember where I said recruit people who are better than you, learn from them, and your work becomes very easy, and everybody thinks this department is always shining. But again, if you're not you have no self-awareness as an individual, you become very insecure, and you start antagonizing everybody, like what we have had, and it becomes very difficult for you to be able to do that. The same question that I asked, do you remember, why is this kind of a person still in the organization? They are still not even qualified maybe to be there, but they always seem to find their space inefficient, through their godfathers, or I don't know. It's difficult, but we can never eliminate those kind of people. One more feeling from someone. Someone feels stressed. Someone feels sorry for them. Someone else?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Elizabeth.
Okay. I think for me, through intimidation and undermining other people, to some extent, it has affected my performance. Because I feel sometimes now I'm working under so much stress or even anger. So I even lack the psyche to work. And that brings my performance down to some extent.
Yeah. So, and then and unfortunately, those feelings are alive. The emotions are real, and you cannot run away from them. The anger, the stress, the frustration, the feeling that this is not what I signed out for. It's really not good for me. Those emotions are real. And how do we deal with them as individuals? How long can we cope with those? How long can we cope with those circumstances? What is your breaking point? Unfortunately, I don't have a solution, but maybe as we are discussing, you're able to pick one or two things that you can look into. You can be able to try out at your place of work and be able to say that I am going to make the best effort, because what I'm hearing is that everybody wants to do the best, and all of us as individuals, we always want to do our best. But sometimes it's so difficult because of the kind of people that we work in, the kind of environment that we have, the kind of teams that we work with. So how best can we be able to respond to that? Okay, so let me just try. So can you change other person's behavior? No, unfortunately not, but we can try. It is not within your control, but you are able to tell them that this is not going well, and are you able to change, and are you able to look at yourself and look at the things. So handling difficult people is more about you and your reaction. It's about you and your reaction. The only thing you have control over is your response to the behavior of that person. And I hear many of us have come up with a coping mechanism and say, this is maybe some of the things that I will do. I will hold on till another job I will go. I will avoid you as much as I can. You know, I will not respond back. I will just sit back and say, well, say all what you want to say. It enters through here and it goes through this other side. Okay. Who knows about E plus R is equals to O? E plus R is equals to O. I'm sure you've come, whatever. It's a very common analysis of how response plus your E is event, R is response, and O is outcome. So the event and how you respond to it will see what kind of outcome you will definitely have. It is easy to judge the attitude, action, and words of others and magnify their impact on you. Using the skill of E and R, your response is an event for others, you know, and their response is an event to you. The starting point for self-awareness is recognizing what you are thinking and doing. I'm going to answer you back. You have been yelling at me. The next time you yell at me, I will yell back at you. What is that? Okay, so that's how. And then what kind of outcome will you have? You will have both of you yelling. You remember the very first slide where we started two angry people talking? The above equation helps you to check where you stand after reacting to any event. The best exercise is to ask 3 simple questions for yourself. What is your typical response to any particular event? Do you put in your emotional intelligence quickly and you wear it and say, I'm getting upset. I'm really getting upset. There's something that I will say and I will regret saying it. Let me count from 1 to 10 and be able to cool down before I say that. The usual outcome, the other person, what will they tell me back? How will I respond to it, knowing what kind of a person they are? Will I want that outcome? Yeah. So what am I going to do in this situation? The outcome of an event will let you know whether you have handled the situation in the right way or not. If not, then you have to change your responses to get the desired outcomes. And sometimes the desired outcomes always make you feel as if you are ceding too much. You are ceding ground because the other person seems to have more power than you, especially if they're your boss, they're your seniors, you know, they always win. So what is the need of me trying to become the more mature person? But dealing with difficult people calls for you to always be the mature person. Please underline that. Dealing with all difficult people, you're always expected to be the mature person for you not to conform to their difficult behavior. What would I do in this situation if I was in your shoes? You know, one thing to always ask difficult people, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? And they might be able to take a step back and say, Allah, okay, I see it differently now. Perhaps I could have done it better. So this is just a very good explanation of what E plus R is equals to O. The event is anything. The feeling, a co-worker's comment, the work is full of errors. The traffic was terrible. It's anything. A misunderstood email, a layoff, like what we are going. The weather is dull. When is it going to shine? A partner's behavior, anything. Other words, you know, a respond is where you get to make choices. The more choices, sometimes you have minute by meeting response, and the outcome is really knowing the situation despite your best efforts will be something. It's always nice to look at this model over and over again. What is the event? How will I respond? And what will be the outcome for here? The outcome might be I'll be fired from this job. The outcome is that they might be able to look through themselves and say, well, I've been a difficult person and it was accidental. I didn't mean it to come out like that. I am very, very sorry, you know. Or they will come and say, I've always wanted to do that to see how far you can go. You remember the very good example we were given, a difficult person, but they were racist. I was intentionally looking to get at you and to see what's getting out of there. So look at your events, look at how you respond, and the outcome. Any questions? Someone who has used this, we use it all the time, interchangeably, we never whatever, but E plus R, always remember, comes your outcome. Okay. So now, right now, I want us to go to the question. Please feel free. Time is going by. I'm enjoying myself. I hope you're also enjoying yourselves, that you're learning. It's never that serious as well. I like to use that mantra. Question, comment, an event that you had this week. How did you respond? What was the outcome? Someone would like to share? You expected a good outcome, but it became about a bad outcome. You expected about a bad outcome, but it was a real good outcome. You're pleasantly happy. Anybody would like to share with us? Even at the workplace, maybe not necessarily you, but the line manager was able to do very well, and you didn't have to go in and resolve that. Martin, what kind of, let me pick on you, because you say that people are always coming, the bosses are always giving you an opportunity to mediate, and because maybe you have a background in law, so you know where to kick in your mediation, whatever. What are some of the events that you've been able to come across? What are some of the responses and some of the outcomes?
Well, I've had a couple of incidences in the week, where even a few employees were unable to, to abide by these regulations, which were set by government on COVID. It's like sanitizing, keeping social distancing. And some even decided to stay away from work on the basis that, the president has said that you have to decongest the workplaces. So mine has been to really engage them and to give the benefit of doubt, to particularly the difficult people, because this new normal is affecting other people more than others. And when you weigh some of the situations, you realize actually that some of these so-called difficult people require a bit of understanding, particularly during this pandemic period. And we have managed to solve some of the issues. I'm happy to report that. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Remember that we are now looking, if we were all working now remotely, or there were a few people still going to the office, the law requires us, and it's almost like in every country, like we get a back to work guidelines or a policy, and all these issues of social distancing, making sure that you're providing the right PPE or equipment for people to be able to work. So when someone asks you that, but I just see them, we sit bumper to bumper with this person, and now we should be a meter. And if they ask you, have you put in plans and devices for us to be 2 meters apart and you say no, and you're still expecting them to come to work. If they don't come to work, what are you guys going to do? You've not put in place plans for a return to work formula and guidelines. You still expect people to come to work as if it was the whatever. People refuse to come to work. How are you going to deal with that situation? Or you label them difficult and fire them? Whose responsibility? Have you been thinking about that? Anyone? Anyone?
Hi, Catherine. So
Hi.
I work in an NGO, and for us, what we are doing, we have a team that is working on a document for a document or a policy. How will staff be when they go back to the office? Assuming we want to say just the essential services, then what does that mean? Have we put in place things like PPIs and also just the doors, the normal doors that we use? Everyone touches the door, and also the kitchen that we share, we have the microwave. What are we putting in place in such kind of things? So we are working on that at the moment. So we let people know the day maybe they will be going back to the office.
Okay, you're putting guidelines around. Okay, that's good, and that's what majority of the companies are doing. But let's take a case where Martin, people did not come to work because the plans had not been put in place. So what will you do to people who say, but you've not put plans in place? I still sit next to someone who is 2 centimeters away from me. Do you want me to contract the disease? And I'm not going to come to work. Too bad. Until you put the policies in place, you actually show me that that has been done, I am not coming. And they are supposed to be in the office. What will you do to those people?
They have the right to do so. They have the right to do so because it's about their health now that we are talking about. Yeah, that will be, I think that's what I'm thinking through.
Someone else?
Carol here. Imagine to some extent there is nothing much you can do because to some extent it's a failure on your side for not having put measures on the return to work formula. At the end of the day, also remember your responsibility is the safety of yourself and the other employees. So also I like the question you brought in, like right now with COVID and the need for people to come back to work. The question would be, if it is you who is being told to go back to work and you know there are no measures that have been put in place on your safety, will you still go back to work? Maybe those are questions which we need to really ask ourselves and be keen about. Exactly. We cannot punish people for wanting to be safe because it is their right to be safe in the first place in the organization.
Yeah, and what I said is that this ship, we don't have the answers. We are building it as we go by. The other thing is that it also calls for a lot of sacrifice in terms of putting aside some budgets for us to prepare the workplace in a way that is safe for people to go back. People will have certain expectations. It's important for you to make sure that you are involving people even as you craft these policies. Like what one of our colleagues said in this meeting is that they have a team that is working behind the scenes, to bring in ideas. So there's involvement. It's not just HR or management making those policies. We need to involve people so that even when they come back, they say, well, it was a discussion. It's not just something, whatever. But the thing is that it calls for extra budget, which organizations do not have. How innovative and how flexible are you to be able to work with your people to prepare back the workplace so that people can go back. The essential services will still continue to go. Some jobs are going to fly off the radar, unfortunately. So are you upskilling? How are you upskilling your people? How are you making sure that the talent you have internally, you can still hold on to them? So types of difficult people, difficult personalities at the workplace, very quickly, in the interest
Excuse me,
of time.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Before you go on, I just wanted to add.
Yeah.
You know, when you call people back to work,
Yeah.
also it is good you communicate. You are calling them back to work, and all these measures have been put in place so that they can have, you know, the confidence to go back. Yeah.
True. And of course, you're not calling them one day and telling them work is going to go back on Tuesday. You've had all these meetings that you're meeting with people virtually online. How are you guys doing? We are preparing the place, workplace. We'll be going back shortly. This is what it is, or we are making an opportunity. You don't have to come to work. Now we have commuting policies, you know. So you're not springing up one day and saying, hey, announcement, back to work on Tuesday. I'm sure you've been working with everyone and people asking you, when can we go back to work? What is happening? And you also giving information. I agree, it's true. Types of people that you can get at the workplace, there are many. I have many. I'll quickly go through them and very quickly. The first person that you get at the workplace is the anxious person. You can relate with this, the anxious people? Oh, sorry, let me go back. Yeah. So the anxious people, these people get upset and nervous very early and very easily. You know, they're always babaikari. You know, we've not finished. You know, this is going to be hard. You know, what is going to happen? Working alongside them becomes a nightmare. And I want you to recognize in your organization, do you have this kind of people? And how can you deal with them? You know, you remember where we say that you will not, there will always be difficult people at the workplace, but, and there are different personalities. So there are some people who get extremely anxious. I can't be able, the boss has called, what are they going to do to me, you know? And I'm working with this boss. He's a very anxious person, never sits down to reflect and to see whatever. So how do you deal with an anxious person? And I'll give you an opportunity just to recap all the personalities that we have in the, so that we're able to move a bit faster. Dealing with them, the best way to deal with an anxious person who's considered a difficult person at the workplace is not to discuss too much and keep their mindset calm. Help them out, you know, okay, this is a suggestion. This is how it's going to be. You've not finished this project. This is how you can deal with them. So I have the personality and how to be able to deal with them. So the other one we have is the annoyed person. Never sees any good in anyone. These people have personal hygiene issues, foul smelling clothes, breath, heavy drinking in the evening. You know, you have people who don't have good body hygiene. And are we able to tell them what happens? We never want to tell them, isn't it? Bad breath. How are we dealing with those people? They are difficult, you know, and sometimes they do not know. And then people say, HR, please go and tell them. HR, please go and tell them. It's very hard to deal with that person because it's their own self. It's them. It's in it. It's not about performance. It's if I come and tell you, oh, your breath smells so bad, we don't want to be with you in the same whatever, it crashes you and your self-esteem. But it's good to go and tell them as it is. The negative-minded person, these people are always filled with negativity and resist change. I remember someone saying this very clearly earlier on. Point out the negative and limitations of everyone and everything. Never sees good of anything. You know, small things become magnified, focus on the negative and ignore the positives. We know these people only too well in the business. The best way to deal with negative people is to remain positive and ignore their negativity. very difficult because they suck the energy out of you. You know, negative energy, negative vibe, never sees good of anything. Oh, even the new CEO, amekuja. What do they know? I should have been the CEO. Never sees good in anything. Remember, we should practice gratitude no matter how difficult the situation is. But some people will always have a negative mind, always very pessimistic. Their glass is always half empty, never half full. The aggressive people, the bullies, these people expect things will go as per their wish and their timeline. I say it goes. I say jump, you ask me how high should I jump, boss? If it doesn't happen, they get exhausted, start making noise through as if though nothing can ever change. These people move in the position of power and they increase the problem all the time. How to deal with them? The best way to deal with aggressive people is to stay calm. You know, a very difficult place to be in. You remember where I said in the earlier slides, remain calm, get your tough, know your position, know your professional ability. And that's what they want. You know, stay calm, be it right, revisit, take a deep breath, and go back and revisit the issue with them. The hostile, who are the hostile people? You get employed and they don't want you there. They think that you have come to invade their space. Always hostile to you. These people may get angry or pretend to be wrong. They use sometimes they can be aggressive in the way they talk, their body language, in the way they approach you. Their demeanor is always, you know, macho and looking at you as if I'm out to get you. Dealing with them, the best way to deal with these people is not to reply to anything with anger. They need you. You need to listen and appreciate them to reduce their discomfort. You know, I'm not here to take over your position. I'm not here to take over your project. I'm here to help you. And this is the expertise I can bring to there. This is the expertise that I am bringing to the table. The blamer, pointing fingers at others. This we are very good at. Difficult people, always the blamer. They find fault in everything and avoid taking responsibility. The major issue is they shift responsibility to others, and whenever things go wrong to the office, don't you love a leader who says, I will bite the bullet for you guys. Let me just go as head of department to this management meeting where we know we will be crucified, our legs will be cut, our necks will be put on a silver platter, but it is okay. When I come back, we will debrief. That's a real good leader. But this one will come and say, they take the file. Guess what? I can't take the blame. It is the two people in the department. It is Catherine and Jane who did not deliver. A good leader just says, okay, I take the blame, will come and debrief. But the blamer will never, whatever, they find fault in everything. They rarely accept their mistakes. They make bad decisions and always a poor performance. You know, they cause undue stress at the place of work. To deal with these kind of people who are difficult, the blamers, is to have an understanding of their concerns and solve their problems as much as possible. That's why you work with them. Maintain firm boundaries with them and not let them push you to a point where you are uncomfortable working with them. And I know some of these things you're saying, hey, Catherine, really? But these people are my seniors. You remember where I said you have to find the sweet pea of working with these people? Every person, dealing with them. How do you deal with them? With understanding. It is not, I'm saying tomorrow, with a difficult boss of what we have had in this webinar, I have that tomorrow you are going to change them. It's not overnight. But how do you circumvent through them and their difficulty for you to be able to win? And we have said sometimes it is difficult. You might have to look for something else in another organization. The Stella, these people are bound to make a commitment. They commit, but they never get there. Yes, I will do it. Yes, you know I'll deliver. Yes. I say, and what is that word we say all the time? Overachieve. Just say you will not deliver. Okay, I'll try and deliver, but you deliver before the deadline. There's a nice line, I forget. Dealing with them, the best ways to deal with them is to go to the root level of fear and find out what information required and take action. Because you know these people, they will say they will do it, but they will never do it. So you better be ahead of the game. You remember my saying, always be ahead of your boss, be 10 steps ahead. Have you done it? Yeah, I knew maybe you, because you are very busy with other things, knowing very well it is not it. You might get tired. But remember emotional intelligence. Boss, I know you were busy, so I actually went, researched, I've come back with it, and they think, I can rely, I can trust this person to work with me. So looking for navigationists, the perfectionist. I love when people come for interviews and we ask them that tired, retarded question. What are your strengths and what are your areas of improvement? And then we even say, okay, areas of improvement means weaknesses. Tired interview question. So they say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. What do they mean, the perfectionist? Perfectionist is someone who's difficult to work with. This type of people are experts and shares their opinion about everything. I know. Dealing with them, the best way to deal with them is to discuss face to face and understand their true value of their knowledge. You say you are an expert in job evaluations. What's the purpose of a job evaluation? You already know, you know, and then they tell you something different, and then understand their knowledge and have that face to face and say, and also it calls for this, the object, you've missed this one, and it's also there, so that they also know that you actually know. They're over agreeable. There's nothing as irritating and difficult to work with someone who will always agree with you. You agree with me? I'm not saying that it leads to a conflict, but someone who's always saying yes, never puts in an opinion, and they should have a mind of their own. They're difficult to work with, yes, yes, yes. Okay, it's not okay. I think that's a good idea. Everything cannot always be a good idea. That whatever you say cannot always be a good idea. These people are more analytical and they work things in a very, they in sequence. They're very inflexible. And that's what some of their weaknesses. So they're very analytical and very logical. They often agree to all things, but later on express their true feelings and could not be met with their commitments. Have you ever gone to a meeting? And this happens in many organizations where I go to consult with. Ask them, so what's the problem here? Is that we discuss things on the table. Everybody agrees that this what's to be done. And when they go out there, the minute they come out of the boardroom, they say, no, mimi sikukubaliana na hiyo. Very annoying. And they did not voice their concern, and they did not say that I was not happy with what has been said. They got an opportunity, but they are the gossipers at the coffee pot. The moment we leave for them to go and fetch more coffee, they find other people. How was the meeting? Unajua vile wamesema. Mimi siku agree. And they were there saying, it is okay. Whatever. The best way to deal with these people is to provide the facts and figures. Do you agree to this? Even when they are going to rumor monger at the coffee meal, you already say the facts is facts. 1 + 1 is 2. Our P&L does not look good. Profits have reduced by 30%. You have your facts and your figures. And the gossiper who takes the trophy all the time, these people talk about other people behind their backs. They have no evidence. That is not in their place to talk about you. And they're talking about you they're talking about you as an individual. And they've not even gotten round to understand who you are. But they paint perceptions where people now start thinking, they're like that. And develop a very toxic environment, and they group other people. I don't know who said a very good point of they suck other people, you know, and people now, the kind of environment we have is an environment where everybody's a gossiper in the organization. The best way to deal with them is to stay away from any conversations and avoid sharing any idea, details of personal life with the office gossiper. Okay, so those are the kind of personalities we have in the workplace, and some of the tactics of how to deal with them. Question: do you find these people at your workplace? Oh, it's perfect. Can you relate with some of them? Which one do you most relate with? And what have you been able to do? Quickly, before I call out your name. Someone volunteer, please.
Sarah here.
Yeah.
Catherine, I want to ask a question around number 9, the overly agreeable people. And you've pointed out a very good situation which applies to many of us, where you're in the boardroom, you are discussing about the deliverables of the week, but then you find a situation where maybe your boss is, can I say, very strict, or your opinion might cost you your job. And that's what happens with many people. So you end up being given deliverables which are not achievable. And by you giving an opinion, or people giving opinions, you are termed as non-performing. So how do you deal with that situation? I know the point is we are supposed to provide facts and figures, but sometimes your facts and figures are dismissed. And that is what you end up seeing people talking immediately, as you say, immediately at the door. We end up saying, can you speak more? Can you speak more into that situation?
Yeah, that's it's I see it all the time. Someone else, I'll pack my opinion for just for now. Anybody, how would you deal with it? Carol has raised a very good point, the over-agreeable, and it happens all the time. It has been imposed to us. We know that it cannot be done. We get out frustrated, just shaking our heads and just thinking, I need to be out of this room as soon as possible. Anybody, how have you dealt with it?
Maybe I can add my voice to this.
Yeah.
In the last week, we did an employee engagement survey, and one of the questions that was in the survey was whether it is safe for employees to speak their minds. And unfortunately, we scored very low on that. So the whole of last week we were like relooking at why is it not easy for people to speak their minds. And we realized that sometimes the supervisors or the managers, they feel like you're challenging. If, like, for example, you're having a meeting and they give, like they say, this is the way we want to do things, and you come up with your own different idea, or maybe you have experienced it differently, and some of them don't take it kindly. So in the meeting, you'll find people will not give their ideas, and they just say yes, 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 knowing very well when I go to the field, it's not gonna work. So it's not that you are agreeing because you actually agree with it, but you are agreeing because you know the consequences. If you say no, or you give another opinion, they feel maybe you're challenging their position, or maybe you're looking down on them, or even maybe within a meeting you want to humiliate them. So it could be as a result of how maybe the managers are feeling at that particular time, and maybe it has to do with the environment, but that was one of the things that came up from my organization in the last 2 weeks.
Okay. What are some of the things? Thank you for sharing that. And you at a vulnerable place in terms of how do we make sure that we are moving together. Everybody is feeling that they are respected, their opinions are valued by the business. What are some of the things that you will be putting in place, for example, that we can actually borrow. And I'm sure many of us are struggling with this, where, well, they've said the manager, they'll think that want to be smart, I want to take their job. It is really not, it's not gonna work. What are some of the things that you are thinking through? What are some of the things you would like to put in place?
One of the things that we discussed and put as action plans,
yeah,
is one of them is basically like to train the managers, supervisors on interpersonal skills.
Mm-hmm.
We also will maybe have more forums where people can be open, like encourage openness and people to feel like you are actually a team. In the last few years, we haven't had those kind of activities where people come together to just share and to unwind. And so like a rift was created unintentionally because of removing one or two activities. But we are thinking of slowly reinstating them. And also training the managers, like how do you deal with other people who are below you? Because like you said, it's important to hire somebody who is better than you so that you can now learn. Now you hire somebody who is better than you or maybe more experienced than you, and then they have a better idea than you. So how do you handle that? Like also creating confidence in them. I just pray that it works, or in the next employee engagement survey, there's some positivity.
It's true. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is not like the over-agreeable and what it creates. It's very emotional. It is not like we are selling flowers. Flowers cost 100 shillings. We've sold 100 flowers, and that's it. It's something. It's not tangible. In fact, that's the word I was looking for. This is not tangible. So it's an investment that you make over time. And this investment actually sits on the kind of culture that you have in the organization. An open culture will elicit more discussion, more opinions, innovation, agility, and for us to be able to accommodate everyone. A closed culture, and sometimes the rift, like what our colleague has said, is we start working in silos, and those silos are created, and by the time we come back, we've created a bad impact on the organization. So that's why I keep on saying the head of the organization sets the pace of the organization. The culture that we call, because culture grows many years, but it's very easy to erode because of lack of communication. So constant communication, openness and trust, being able to come and have a one-on-one meeting and say, CEO, I see a problem here and let me help you. I want you to succeed, using very deliberate, nice words. I want you to succeed. And for you to be able to succeed, I want you to look at this issue that is taking us behind. And he sets the pace. The next time he goes to a town hall meeting, or he has a meeting with his senior team, he starts saying, I think we need to give people the autonomy for them to be heard a bit more. That's what I want. What can we do as a team? And then something else you can whisper to the CEO's head, ear, you come and say, I would like you to start going to attend departmental meetings, show up, encouragement, and say what's happening here. And the boss of that department will come and say, well, the CEO is coming. People might not speak up that day, but the CEO comes and reaffirms and says, we are giving you autonomy. What would you like to hear? What would you like to say? And slowly, it takes a long time. It's not like selling a product or a service where you know that this is what we do. But these things are intentional, they are deliberate. And if you don't put those kind of programs in place, you will fizzle off, and we will have people who are one foot in, one foot out. So it's more of deliberate effort, putting programs, leading by example. Some people will not want to do that because that is their nature. And I said it's a bad nature. There's nothing to be proud when you have vices and you think they are good things. Everything says everything goes. Unfortunately, you'll continue losing talent. That is what I would say about around it, okay? And I'm sure you can all attest to it. I'm sure you have many other programs. We can always discuss this offline for us to be able to come up with ways and means. But really looking at your culture, making sure it's deliberate, whispering to the CEO's ear if he's whatever, or just making sure that his peer, if a peer is someone that you can talk to, this is what people are saying, and using words that will really affirm them to make sure that they look at them and say, hey, kumbe, people want the best for me and for the best for this organization and things like that. Okay, great. To our last topic of some techniques of dealing with difficult people, something that was in the expectations of the participants in this seminar. Something else before the difficult people? Someone else? Anything?
Yeah, Martin here.
Yeah.
At the time of engaging talent,
yeah,
is it possible to identify some of these, potential candidates of, this culture, difficult people? Are you able to identify them and avoid them coming into the organization to some extent?
I think it's possible. It's I wouldn't say that it's 100% given, because people hide a lot during interviews. You know, if it's just looking at a CV, because we know first and foremost that 75% of CVs are not correct. They have lied about one thing or the other. It's not like 100% whatever, but 75%. If how you interview is you look at someone's CV and say, in 1999 you say that you were here and this is what you achieved, or even 1999 is too far, or even 2013 you tell me you are working with Martin Advocates and this is what you did, and they fumble, you know that there's a gap anyway. So always look at the CVs. CVs as a good place to measure how someone is interviewing. But that said and done is that don't be too quick how you position your advert, how your brand preposition is positioned in the market, the kind of values that you have internally. That is where you first start. Your interviews start at that stage. Why would I apply for a job at XYZ company? Have I really researched and say their values and mine resonate? First and foremost, even as candidates, then you take the next step of saying, yeah, this is a good company, I'll apply, I'll try out my chances and stuff like that. So let's pack that. Then you invite them for interviews and you want to know a little bit more about Catherine. Unfortunately, we are not taking time as HR to go out and really find out who Catherine is at any level, whether they are the people who make our office environments clean, from the cleaner to the CEO. As HR, we have such opportunities to have abstract ways of finding out who Catherine is, from their social platforms interactions, from saying that I know Catherine works at XYZ company, I'll pick up the phone because I know the HR of that company. We are friends, we are peers, and I'll say, Catherine has been interviewing with us. Why did she leave you guys? What kind of a person she is? And I know you do all that. The other thing is that going a step further and having interviews which are not rushed. Like at our senior level, we take you almost think that you will earn 10 million shillings in a month, and maybe we're only paying you 10,000 shillings. You're wondering, really, for all that? But we want to make sure you are a close fit as possible for the job and for our culture. So some of those things, psychometric tests, one Hogan, the other one will do a Belbin. You get what I mean? And especially at some levels, you coming to be interviewed at a panel where we choose from the cleaner to the teams that you'll be supervising to another department for you to be able to interact, just making sure that it calls for a lot of time, but you're trying to make sure that as close as possible, and it's expensive as well. So are you investing with your at the recruitment stage? How much are you, whatever, and asking those hard questions? What ticks you off? Are you self-aware of who you are? Tell us of a story of who you are in 15 minutes. Describe who you are, and we are listening keenly and picking points and asking you. So when you ask me to introduce myself, how many minutes does it take? Less than 2 minutes. My name is Catherine Wamwangi. I'm an executive coach. I went to Strathmore University. I have worked in 4 organizations. I am a mother and I love going to church. Is that that's Catherine on the surface, but what informs you who you are? What kind of circumstances? What kind of family did you come from? What are your values? What kind of, and you throw a question like politics. How does it inform you? You know, and you start getting those kind of perceptions. Difficult, laborious, boring, expensive, but you will be able to see whether they are close fit. Yeah. So that's what, we don't do all that, but it's things that I think about, things that I see other companies doing. But you remember the first slide, will you be able to avoid difficult people in totality? No. Because people, again, don't want to mature in themselves and to call out their weak points and to be able to say, enyewe, I shout a lot at the factory floor. Why would I be shouting at Mutua? I'm seated 10 meters. I mean, like I'm on one side of the factory and yelling at Mutua, and there are 50 other people on the factory floor. When you go home, do you even think of what you did to Mutua today? What it did to the other team members? Difficult, because you've decided that that is how you are as a person, and that is not giving you any pride. It doesn't earn you any brownie points. You have to call yourself to a meeting every day and evaluate and reflect what kind of a person you are. Then you would have a better person. Again, the first thing is about ego. Are we able to seed our ego to make sure that the other person is integrating? Good question, Martin. We can't eliminate them, but we can try as much as possible. How you position your job, your brand in the market, the kind of culture you have internally, because it can come and have a wall. This we don't agree in organization. And this, it's meted out with consequences. Remember, consequences are also very important. Consequences are important as they can be. Okay. So, can I move forward? Can I move on? Question? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Feel free to jump in if I miss out anything or things that have worked. That is what we are here for. I'll go very quickly again through the techniques. They can be as many as we are. This is not exhaustive. It can work. Sometimes it cannot work, but takes things that, and there's things that you can relate with, things that you have seen working, you know, and things like that. Always stay calm. It's never that serious. I think the people who stay calm, we are HR, stay calm. You know, I love it. Whoever came up should patent that. I hope they, whatever. So one of the things is to stay calm, you know, predict the situation. You remember E plus R is equals to O. Listen to others. You remember one of the traits we need to develop as people, and also one of the competencies of HR is active listening, a skill so that you listen to the said and to the unsaid. And there's no order. It's not saying that the first one, this is a difficult person, stay calm. There's no order of all these techniques that I have put in place. I've just, they're the ones which I use very often. And so there's no whatever. You might just decide, okay, listening, I need to listen to this situation first and whatever, but staying, okay. Use the stop model to avoid reactivity. So stop whenever you are doing presently. Listen to this situation. internalize it, you know, take 3 deep breaths. Always, because what I'm going to say right now, I might regret it. So let me take a step back and just deep breaths. Observe how you feel, what kind of emotions are coming out of you. This is real anger. I might kill this person. So those deep 3 breaths helps you calm down. And then how do I feel? How do I relate? And proceed with dignity and compassion, because even the other person, you remember where I say sometimes it's accidental, they don't even feel, they don't even realize they're doing it. So, but sometimes it can just be ingrained and it becomes a real bad behavior. Be proactive, not reactive. Many of us are reactive, you know. The time you know you are reactive, when it's been caught by a traffic policeman, you might be not even be on the wrong. You don't even know that your brake light is not working, honestly, but how you react compared to you being proactive. Officer, wacha niende niangalie nyuma ya kwamba brake light hata sijajua, pole sana, sasa umenikosoa, asanti sana. You know, instead of sasa mimi nitajuaje brake light? Si mtu wa nyuma ndio anafaa kuniambia ifanyi kazi? Look at those 2 kind of whatever reactions that you have, because then it informs how the other person is going to react to you. Remember the E plus R, really this model, the techniques that you are using right now, always think about your E and R and the outcome that you really expect. Don't take things too personally. Sometimes really they're dealing with their own issues, where we say they have mental illness, the mental well-being is not well, they are not feeling well, so they take everything out at you. But it also calls that you also protect yourself. Don't take everything too personally, you know, because then if you do that, then there's never going to be an end to this. Even the next organization you go, it might just be the same, because we say that these people, you'll always find them all over. Detach yourself from the situation. It helps you to remove the emotion and reduce the friction. So detach yourself from that and say, as an individual, Catherine, I am going to look at the issue at hand. It's not the person. I'm not looking at Catherine. I am actually looking at the situation in hand, the yelling that is taking place. But it's, of course, it's Catherine who is yelling, but how do whatever. Sometimes humor, when they're in a good mood, do a high five, and then you start having that discussion of, hey, boss, you know, sometimes you really hit it off and people do not like it. So appropriate humor softens the environment and the atmosphere. Take responsibility, introspection. You know, where am I? When you're feeling frustrated and whatever, retrospect and take responsibility. Reflect back, you know, a smart technique of being able to work with difficult people. Learn to build a rapport. No matter how difficult it is, sometimes work around it. These are some of the things that you really need to do. And it also calls for maturity. You remember where I said you always must be the mature one, unfortunately, working around difficult people, unless really it's whatever, the best way to understand the other person. Keep your power, don't cede it. Keeping your power to sustain yourself while dealing with difficult people will give you some relief. Keeping your power is things like, I am a professional. I know how to do this job. They do not know how to do it. They rely on me, you know. So keeping your power without pride, you know. So it just gives you whatever. They know that, hey, you can't approach them like that. I will need their help. I need to work with them, you know. So learn to keep your power and keep it in check and keep it in balance and continue building on it. Don't return anger for anger. I remember someone here saying we get angry, we get frustrated, but they do not retaliate. You know, they keep at it and they just look back and say, I'll continue doing whatever. So when everybody shouts, the grass is the one that got injured. Speak with the person directly. We never want to whatever. And having eye contact. Why are we afraid of eye contact as Africans? How many minutes can you hold eye contact with the other person? That's not our nature, but really having eye contact, having a personal discussion. Can I take time? Can I please engage with you next week? I would like to have a meeting with you. Look for a time when whatever, where you can have, speak to the person directly. You remember, praise in public, reprimand in private. Keep record of your conversations, especially if someone is bullying you or harassing you at the place of work. Why I'm saying keep a record, because you will need it as evidence to be able to be tabled to the person who will be the arbitrator or the mediator, either HR or the boss of the person who's causing you, who's antagonizing you. Quickly, don't gossip, very common. Don't get there, because you'll all be labeled. You know what they do to me? They're bad. Because you're talking about that person. You're not talking about the situation because of the emotions. You're talking about Catherine, but you're not talking about what Catherine said. And that's what. So everybody, okay, you all get into that Bollywood of whatever. And when it becomes too jumbled, you're not able to separate who's the better person and who's the worst person. Pick your battles carefully. Choose your battles, Keep a watch for difficult people on your job, If you don't have to work with them, don't have to work with them. If you have to work with them daily, pick the battles that that you can win. The ones you cannot win, try and escalate them to the next level. Understand other people's perceptions. Sometimes it could be us, but the perception of that person. You remember the definition of difficult people is because they don't ascribe to what I believe. I believe that coming to work on time is important. Time management is important. This person does not care whether they report at 9:30. At 9:30, they don't even start their time, their work. What they come and do is start polishing their shoes and putting on their lipstick. After that, they read the newspaper. After reading the newspaper, they start drinking tea. It's 11 o'clock. After that, they start looking at their email. At 12 o'clock, they're back to reading. They start working at 4. At 4, you need to start going to school to do your CHRP. You get what I mean? And then the difficult behavior starts, because your perception, your values are not meeting in the middle. But what divides that value is that we have terms and conditions of our employment, we have rules and regulations, we have policies, and we also have a culture and values in our organization. Manage your emotions. Go and buy that book if you don't have it. I'll start sounding like a broken record. Self-awareness, extremely important of who you are. Treat the other person with respect. Respect is earned. You respect me, I respect you back. Be a professional in what you do. Be smart, be ahead of your game. Always continue learning, look for best ideas, become agile, innovative, creative, for you to be able to beat these people at their game. 2 more, keep a healthy distance, be diplomatic, If you don't have to be in their space, you don't have to. Don't act defensively, don't counter toughness, it will just make it worse. And another one is to express appreciation when appropriate. And I would like to end up with this story. My first real job, let's say my first real job, I had a very difficult boss who never saw anything good of anyone, the whole team. But when we look back, in fact, we say we graduated from her kindergarten. She was also very kind in other ways, She sprung surprises at us, and we thought, oh, really? But we were young and foolish. We were in our 20s, 21, 23. After you finish university, you go to the workplace and you find this 50-year-old supervisor who wants things done. If the full stop is not there, you repeat the whole document and things like that anyway. But when you look back, though her way of leading was very bullish and very tyrant, but she wanted the best of you. And she made many of us, when we look back, because we became very good friends, and you can get very good friends in organizations that you work, because it was a good culture, it was a good multinational, she was always shining, she was always, so we decided to get the best out of it. She would give us memos every day. Everybody would get a memo. And there was this guy who got so many memos every day. He used just to put them in the dustbin. I say, read your memo. She says, I know what it is. It's another warning. It is fine. I did the work fine and whatever. So I look back with a lot of gratitude that it was a difficult time, but she helped us grow. She helped us realize that without hard work and committing yourself, it's we would not be where we are. Though it was difficult, she was just these people who she never said thank you. She was not warm, but neither did she was just very tough, and she was not endearing. She's not someone who would, but on certain times she would crack a joke and bring us lunch and things like that from her own money, you know, young and foolish, and we want free lunch. But when we look back, so I'm sure you've been whatever. And why I'm saying that is difficult persons, sometimes they don't want to hurt you. They want you to learn the skill and be able to move forward. So when you find such a person, marinate on it and take it and appreciate them that, hey boss, you're difficult, but it was not for you. I would not be where you are. I'm sure you have one or two people whom you can look back and say, if it was not for you, I would not be where I am. Thank you for doing that. It was difficult. It wasn't the best of times, but I look back with a lot of gratitude. So if you have those people, you need to appreciate them when it is appropriate. That comes to the end of our discussion, and how to deal with difficult people. Just say, stand, do a reality check, focus on behavior, learn to listen, learn to give feedback when it's appropriate. And this is a model that I wanted us to have a look at. And I'm sure you all know this, whatever. Effective communication with difficult people, LEAP. When you go back at your workplaces or at in whatever environments that you are right now, learn to listen, be empathetic, ask them. They like to be involved, you know, and look for ability to be able to solve problems. Okay, conclusion. Whenever you are dealing with difficult people at work, there are two options. Either you learn to live with them or try to change them. Learning to live with them is the easiest route, as long as you have a strategy of how to deal with them. If an employer works for you, then you should make it an effort to change them. Though it requires more work initially, and that is what we discussed, you'll be successful. Handling difficult people at work is challenging, but also rewarding. Everyone will owe you a debt of gratitude for that. Okay. So of course, we all know that you can't stop the waves from coming, but you can learn how to surf them. Okay, that comes end of our workshop. Let's have some questions, some comments, some suggestions. Was it useful? Did you learn something out of it? Did it meet your expectations? I can go back to some slides. I know I have rushed through it. Unmute yourself so that I'm not just the only one. Anything?
Thank you very much, Catherine. We've learned a lot in the 2.5 hours. I'm just going back to the equation, the E and R is equals to outcome. And that process was a bit quick, but I wanted to add that just a case study quickly. There was this situation in the office where an employee who had come in through a godfather was very abusive to an elder person.
Yeah.
And this was because she was being asked to do what she was employed to do. and that was to access the storeroom and get some photocopying papers for this person. And she threw the keys to the person and told them to pick them themselves. And that was not what was supposed to be. So someone else pointed this out and said, please, first respect the person because he's much older than you. And secondly, if you have an issue, why don't you talk to him about it? So she continued. Now she had two enemies, and she was very now rude to the two of them. And this person who had tried to correct the situation reported it in the meeting, but nothing was done because, of course, the godfather was there. So she continued and she abused someone else, and this person actually held her at the neck and wanted to hit her and called the godfather and said, I'm going to beat her. And he said, no, don't, I'm coming to sort it. We don't know what happened, but she has those episodes. So people have learned to keep quiet, but that's the outcome.
So that's the outcome, yeah.
That's the outcome. So people are living with it.
And of course, people are not happy living with it, isn't it?
Of course.
Okay, so what happens is that there are hidden costs, isn't it?
Yes.
So there are hidden costs, which will cost the organization.
It will cost the, yeah.
Difficult. And I don't have, as we have all said, is that she's in a place where she has an opportunity to make it really good for herself. I have a godfather, but she takes advantage. The thing is that we need now to talk to the godfather. If you have that kind of a rapport with the godfather and say, start with the positives. She's a good employee, but her behavior has continued to manifest itself in this way, and she rides on you. And now you are the one who's being seen as protecting her. You need to own the situation, own your mess, and deal with it. And maybe he will go back and say, hey, this cannot continue. You need to work in a team, and everybody will isolate her. She'll start feeling lonely, and she will start doing things which are whatever, or perhaps there could be an underlying problem that you guys do not know, like what we have talked about, mental illness, things that she's going through, issues that are very, very difficult for her right now for it to manifest like that. Again, what Martin said, and Hortensia, can we be able to smell these people 10 miles away before they join the organization? Unfortunately not. There are things that we can put in place to get a close fit as possible, not to allow them into the gate, but sometimes it's very difficult, But how can we work around it? Can you use some of the techniques that we have discussed today to be able to address the situation that you have at hand? Anyone else? Comments, questions, suggestions? Has it been useful? Anyone? Anyone? Okay.
Carol here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine, for that beautiful presentation. I've learned so much in that 2.5 hours. I'm actually questioning myself where I've been all this time. I've learned quite a lot, and thank you for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm happy that we've all been able to share experiences, share some of the principles around dealing with difficult people, some of the models that you can use. And it's work in progress. That's what we're saying. It's work in progress, and it's choices that we want to make the organizations a better place. Then also we know that we need to put it at the level of line managers for them to be able to resolve conflicts at that place, to be able to point out their difficult people, and for us to be able to help them from a technical point of view. Okay, great. Anybody else before I return back the mic to Mr. Dan? Is Dan still on the? Dan, are you there?
Catherine, this is Sabrina.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask you. You talked of line managers dealing with the, these issues, the conflicts, and all that. But I was thinking of we have other smaller leaders under the line managers. I thought they should have these soft skills of dealing with of handling such.
Yeah, anybody who is responsible for leading people, whether it's the and large organizations, small organizations, how we structure our organization chart is very different. Every company will be very different. So as long as you are leading people, you should have the people skills, the soft skills. You should have the competencies. If you don't have them, we need to take you for training. You need a mentor, you need a coach. So every person who is looking after people is responsible for solving people issues. That's what we said. And we all agree that that's the way it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Great. So for me is to thank you
one
very.
thing I wanted to say, Catherine.
Yes.
I think in everything we do, maybe as HR people, it's also important to have well enshrined raising concerns avenue, because sometimes we may not be able to deal with issues directly because of the, let me say, politics in the office or who has which godfathers where. But if we have some well laid down processes for raising concerns where you don't have to be victimized or it won't come up for you to be victimized, then you might find that people are able to provide feedback that is objective and point out some injustices that may be happening somewhere, which if you have good leadership team, they will take time to investigate.
Yeah, true. You've summarized it. You wouldn't have put it any better, Jane. Thank you for that summary. Yeah. So thank you very much for turning up. I really appreciate. I also learned a lot. Thank you, Dan, for organizing these workshops, and we hope to see you in the subsequent ones. The notes will be dropped at the portal, so please continue interacting with the notes. There were some wonderful videos that also will be dropped at the portal, and there's a lot of materials online that you can access for yourself. So continue learning. That's what I keep on saying. Challenge yourself to become better. And we hope to see you in the next one. For me, God bless you and hope to see you soon. Over back to Dan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Those on the video, thank you. I must appreciate all of you for having found the time to come to attend to this webinar. And Madam Catherine, thank you. Thank you very much. I think you are a wonderful trainer. Now, some things that have come up here. I asked a question as a participant, and nobody. No, I'm talking as Dan of ACHLP. Now, this is the question. By the time, okay, let me go back there. Should organizations have a policy? Madam Catherine, this is to you. To have a policy for the line managers to undergo routine psychiatric tests so as to determine their suitability to continue serving and thereby curb the staff terrorizing that unstable HODs unleash on their subordinates. The reason I'm asking this, some of the most difficult situations are difficult people to deal with, as the HODs, the line managers, would never listen to the HR advice. But the moment things go haywire, they are the first ones to say, oh, you know, the HR never advised me. So they, at that particular point, they behave like nursery school kids. They don't know anything. The HR never told them what was expected of them. But mostly, remember, they do not listen to the HR. Their advice or their opinions matter a lot. And actually, their opinions trump any other opinion allowed them. So what should happen? Now, maybe before I put the question mark there, remember, say 10 years ago, you employed this young man who had come from the university. He had a master's degree, he had a professional course. So he joins your organization, he's vibrant, he's a high performer, he's got everything that you would wish to have in an employee. Although the other day I was reading a book, I'll share with you, Snakes in a Suit. In a suit, although I don't have a suit. Snakes in a suit, manyoka in a suit. Now, so you have got these people. He's joining your organization. You are happy to go. You are ready, and you are raring to go. And Martin, since you're also there, and you are an advocate, you advise also. That's why I made all of you panelists, so that this becomes a discussion. There are no attendees. All of us were panelists. Now, then 10 years down the line, you realize you've already entrusted human resources to this HOD. Akona watu 300 who is managing or she is managing for purposes of not identifying the culprit easily. I've used both genders, so she and he. Now, you realize the staff under this guy's watch start resigning. And they are not resigning because they are paid poorly. They are resigning while they are earning several hundred thousands per month. But they say, no, I want to resign. Why? As Catherine put it, most employees leave because of bad bosses. Now, during this time of Corona, I was sharing with someone. I found that employees are busy, have the time. They are dodging Corona, half the time. Then these are the half, they are dodging the manager, the HOD. So my question would be, wouldn't it be suitable, therefore, in the lifetime of, in the work life, this HOD at some point, subject them, so don't identify one of them, say all of them, for some suitability tests to see whether this is the same guy you hired. Remember, we've said we are not able to lock difficult people or get water. Some of them will be able to sneak in. And so you want to find out, is this the same fellow who I hired? Is he still suitable to manage my most important resources, the people? So Catherine, over to you.
Let me unmute. Oh, you remember where I said that, and we discussed around people reinventing themselves, young and foolish at 21, at 30, at 40, at 50. Where is your level of maturity? How are you growing? The kind of experiences that you have informs the kind of person that you continue to be as you go along. That's point number one. As an individual, looking at yourself, reflecting. Point number two is the kind of feedback that you continue getting from people and the ability to take criticism and marinate on it and say, hey, let me check myself. Point number three is ability to look at the internal forces that make you the kind of person that you are. Your ability to continuously make yourself a better person through continuous learning. And if the environment is providing you those kind of opportunities, you should grab them and go with them. At every stage, I keep on saying, the psychometrics test you took at 25, there are some things that will always be inherent in you. But as you progress, you become a better person, and you look at your psychometrics at 21, I can tell you for a fact, and the one that I have taken 10 years or 15 years later is very different. The other factor that will inform you what kind of a leader you are is the kind of culture that you work in. If it's a kind of culture where the top leadership rules with power, or the power is centered on them, then unfortunately, power corrupts, and we'll always have people who think that I'm head of the division and I am what I say goes, and we have no place to be able to define ourselves as the 5,000 employees because head of departments are law and order. I will work here until I get somewhere else to go. Unfortunately, it all comes down to culture and open communication and ability to be brave as individuals who work in that organization and call out bad behavior. There should be maybe one person who stands and says, this is not where I want to be. And I will say it as it is, and the consequences will be there, and maybe I'll have to go. So it's difficult. It's the onus is up to the person. That's what I believe. And also onus is up to the organization to provide opportunities for feedback and having a culture that is open and trustful, and that is very difficult in many organizations. And I do not say that it is easy, but again, people also being brave and calling out bad behavior. So it's a couple that it's a concoction of too many things that go on with it. Yeah. Do you see bosses who have been killed, riders who have been to shoot bad bosses or to put them on the social media and the exposed of bad behavior? So let's not get there. So let's keep changing people and giving them opportunities. And also what kind of competency pillars do you have for leaders? These are the kind of competencies they need to work in this organization. If I'm promoting you, you must go for certain trainings for you to be able to lead people. I like people who come and say, I don't want to lead people. Wamenishinda. I don't want to lead people because wamenishinda, take me back to my technical expertise. And I have many people who come and tell me, no, I'm not interested in leading people, because leading people come with own share of challenges. You as a leader and the people that you'll be leading. And I'm sure other people will be able to have an input in this as well. Anybody else? Jane, you'd like to add something?
Yes, I was on mute. You know, I think great organizations have great structures. Organizations without great structures have now those little chiefdoms happening in small departments. And we will end up coming with policies and policies to try and govern people who you should have let go a long time ago. I agree, the people should always be given the opportunity for development. But Mr. Dan, if an organization is progressive and has structures of proper performance management, which is not an event, you don't wait to do it at the end of the year. You continuous your evaluation is more from room A and B to room B, and you did just that. It is you doing the shouting at everybody. Was everybody running away from you? Do you have 360 feedback mechanism? What are your team members talking about your leadership style? Can they comfortably talk about how you have developed them, how you coach them, how they emulate you? If you ask for a role model and they always choose a leader in another department and not your department, if you're really progressive as a leader or as the head of that organization, you'll already be picking that there's a problem with that person. Again, I want to say great organizations have great structures. So I think we need to strive to have great structures than trying to impose people and throwing them to psychiatrists every year in and out to see whether they were good. You can tell whether I'm good by whether you're monitoring and evaluating me well in a 360 environment. That's what I have to say.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Great structures are important. Open communication, great culture. If there's any toxic things coming into the organization, nip them immediately and make sure that they are not they will not continue. Calling out bad behavior is important. Okay, back to you then. I will be leaving shortly for a 2 o'clock meeting.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you so much, Jane. Jane Wanjoy. And I would say you are you've put it very well. But I'll still pursue the issue of trying to find this to find out the suitability of the teams we have to ensure that our all staff remain safe. Remember, you as HR, you have a duty to take care of all staff. So you cannot let one of them terrorize everyone else. Once one staff leaves, I'd say through the exit surveys, you realize the cause of my leaving was because of this and this, and that happens to 10 to 5, 6, 10 people, then there must be a problem. Now, for those who are leaving this webinar, thank you very much for attending. For those who want to watch something, not some music, for those who want to watch how to hold difficult conversations, I'll share, but feel free to leave it to your own pleasure. Until next week, we shall be having, what are we having, Catherine?
Providing feedback.
Not providing feedback, designing feedback.
Designing feedback. I love anything to do with feedback.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to having all of you and some more. Thank you. This training is a 2 CPD training. Next week training is a 2 CPD training. And maybe let me explain something about CPD. Sometime in December, and that's what I've always done for the last 4 years. We come up with a calendar and submit this for review by IHRM. Once the topics are approved, we've given them the course content and so on. They give us an invoice. So I got an invoice last year for trainings, not last year necessarily. In December 2019, I got an invoice for our courses za 2020, totaling 480,000, which I paid on the spot. Now, what that means is that businesses have to come up with innovative ways on how to survive. Now that the government said we can't do hotel trainings, hotel workshops, we had to come up with this. And I remember when we held the first meeting, we got a lot of problems because it was a free Zoom. And every 40 minutes, it kept disconnecting. Today, because this is not free, we can speak for 24 hours every day. So having said that, always know that all our trainings are pre-approved for CPD approval. And by the way, I'm finding training this way is even better than the hotel setting. People can participate, people can talk, such that even after Corona, I'm hoping that we shall maintain what we have. So as much as we would be doing the hotel trainings, the webinars will become part of our training mediums. Thank you. So I'll share something unless somebody wants to ask me a question directly. Not about the training that has just started. I was not the trainer. Something? Lucy, you want to say something?
No, it was in relation to the training, but
no. Since I can see Jane Wanjohi is still here, you can ask. And I can see Sarah Sayo is there, Elizabeth Karemi is there, Sabrina.
Okay,
so
my input.
Answer.
Yeah, my input was on taking HODs or the leaders for psychiatrist testing. One, I think I agree with Jane. I agree with Jane on 360, because by the time you're getting 10 people leaving because of the boss, then there's a problem. Then you need to investigate the problem instead of subjecting everyone to psychiatry testing. The other problem is when we use that mode, then we are again stigmatizing conditions which some of the people may have genuine conditions, which is not their fault. Could be hormonal, could be issues, backgrounds. So when you take a van load of HODs, you're taking them for psychiatry, again, you're creating stigma for mental health issues. And you know, this is Kenya, this is Africa. So I believe the best way is, if there is such a problem, then that's a problematic HOD, use coaching or use annual training on how to lead, and all these things will come up with surface, and then apply change behavior techniques for those people to be able to continue. And if the HOD is a problem, then there's also exit for him. But psychiatry, subjecting them to yearly psychiatry is not correct, just like I am not for psychometry testing, because I believe it's not structured for some of us. It's not inclusive.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Points well taken. And I'll engage with you. Then I'll find out more on what should happen. Now, let me share something with Udo and watch to Pole Pole. One day we'll do a training regarding that. It's about how to have difficult conversations, having difficult conversations. Let's watch the video.
Most difficult conversations boil down to two core issues: asking someone to change something or cleaning up a past mistake you have made. But the conversation is only the starting point. You can't force someone else to change, and even if your conversation is about cleaning up your own mistake, you can't force someone to forgive you. So what do you do if they continue to resist your efforts? You have three choices. Think A, B, C: acceptance, boundaries, and change. First, you can simply accept the situation. If you enter into a conversation where you have very little choice or power, accepting may be your best option. Now, just because you don't see any real choices is no reason to avoid the conversation. If there's a pressing issue, the conversation still needs to be had. And here's why. Until people know there's a problem, they can't make a change. You must give them the choice. Let me share a personal story. I once had a very aggressive boss that many of us viewed as a bully, and I felt intimidated by his language, and when he was upset. I thought I had a very compelling why. I wanted a more pleasant work environment, and I wanted to stop feeling intimidated. When I finally worked up the courage to initiate the conversation, he resisted initially. He said, "No one can make you feel intimidated unless you allow it." I said, "Well, that's true. However, now that you know how it affects me and you continue to do it, you do it with knowledge, whereas before you had no idea." What was amazing to me is that my boss actually did work on his behavior. Most of the time, we have more choices than we initially see. The next choice is to set a boundary. A boundary is about the choice you make, not about changing the other person. For example, I could have said, the next time you raise your voice at me, I'll walk away and I'll come back when we can talk reasonably. Finally, you can make a dramatic change. I have the choice to transfer to another department or leave the company altogether. Now let's look at a different situation and see these same three choices play out when the power shifts and you hold the cards. Suppose you have an employee who isn't reaching her sales quota. You like the employee and you can't afford to lose her right now. You've had the conversation and the accountability, nothing really changed. You can simply accept your decision to keep her for a time being until you fill up your talent pool. Or you could set a boundary. For example, set a timeline for 3 weeks to help her reach her goals. And conversations have the power to improve relationships, working conditions, and productivity. When someone isn't willing, the conversation still needs to be had. And even if they resist, you always have three choices: to accept, to set a boundary, or make a change. If you think that difficult conversations in your personal life will be easier than in your professional life, you are dead wrong. That's because the biggest barrier in every difficult conversation is the emotion. Think about it. You need to talk with your boss about a mistake you made, but you feel intimidated. Or you have to tell your spouse you've overdrawn the bank account. You feel fear. You didn't meet your sales quota and the team didn't get the bonus. You feel embarrassed. Or you need to apologize to a friend for lying to them. You feel shame. We're all emotional beings. Whether we're at work or at home, we can't put our emotions on a shelf. The emotions we experience in our personal and professional lives are the same. How and where you express it depends on the environment. That's why you need to have